in Konoha, starting by unlocking the Tenseigan. Hey! Look who's back for more adventures. We love having you here to continue this story that keeps us all awake. Important note, all of this is pure fiction, so don't try any techniques you hear here in real life, your neighbor might call the cops. This amazing novel and all its rights belong to the original author, we're just the ones giving it voice and drama. Are you enjoying the show? Prove it by subscribing to our YouTube channel and leaving that like that motivates us so much. And if you want VIP access to exclusive content, our Patreon is waiting with things you won't find anywhere else. Chapter 101 Night Exploration of the Hidden Cloud Village. After playing a long game of flying chess with your kiddo, Hyūga Teru headed for Kumagakure. Not only to visit the lovely Mabu, but also to get a heads up on Kumagakure's plans. After all, in Mabu's eyes, he was half Kumagakure. It would be very convenient for him to get to know about important events. That night, when Mabu arrived home, the two played a few rounds of flying chess as usual, then cuddled together in bed. Honey, you're getting stronger and stronger. Have you been taking a lot of supplements lately? Mabu panted, snuggling against Hyūga Teru, gazing at him with delight and satisfaction. Hyūga Teru couldn't help but pinch her hips and said, "Do you think I need supplements, honey? Even a guy like the Raikage is no match for me. 10 of you wouldn't be enough for me." Mabu immediately rolled his eyes at Hyūga Teru. "This isn't even like fighting, is it? I've heard that no matter how strong a man is, he can't compare to a woman in this area." Hyūga Teru couldn't help but smile. "Why are you listening to this nonsense? Speaking of which, the village is going to sign a peace treaty with Konoha recently? Any progress?" Mabu blinked curiously, staring at Hyūga's profile. "What's wrong, husband? Are you also concerned about the village? Are you worried about my safety, or the safety of the village?" Hyūga couldn't help but pinch her chin and kissed her lips gently. "What do you think? Is there anyone else in this village worthy of my nostalgia? Before, you followed that rough guy, the Raikage, and went to target me with the Sunagakure ninjas, but I ended up teaching you a lesson, and you met me. If you met someone else, you would probably die right there. It's rare to find someone who loves women as much as I do." Hyūga's hands became restless as he spoke, caressing Mabu until she gasped and her cheeks flushed. "Hubby, stop talking. If you keep going, you won't be able to get up tomorrow. Come to think of it, you're right. The Fourth Raikage intends to question Konoha and even demand a satisfactory explanation before signing a peace agreement. Although it's beneficial to the village, it's still quite risky. No matter how much I try to persuade him, I can't persuade him." Hyūga Teru couldn't help but stroke her worried face. "Don't worry. Hubby has left a mark on you. If you're ever in danger or on the verge of death, I'll be there to save you. With my healing abilities, even if you're seriously injured, broken arms and legs, I can easily heal them." Mabu couldn't help but bury her head deep in Hyūga Teru's arms. "Hubby, you're so kind. I feel so safe and happy. I just don't know when I can have your child," Hyūga Teru said with a sly smile. "Pregnancy is just a matter of having more sex. I can't wait. I can stay with you for a few more times, right up until dawn." That's why she wasn't worried about losing her blood. Firstly, Hyūga Teru was so powerful that he had nothing to worry about. Secondly, with Kiddo Matsukami, the entire Kumagakure could easily become his. He'd felt it clearly since acquiring the Senju Sage body. Kiddo Matsukami's cooldown had shortened, and it was estimated to be fully cool in less than a year. With a bug eye, which could collectively rewrite the wills of others, he could do whatever he pleased. Even asking Black Zetsu to call him father wouldn't be a problem. Mabu couldn't help but shake his head, a look of immense fatigue in his eyes. "No. Let's not force it. Let nature take its course. But what about after the child is born? Will I raise it? It's not a big deal for me to raise it, but I'm mainly worried about gossip." Hyūga Teru couldn't help but chuckle. "What's there to worry about? I can change my appearance. As long as the Raikage doesn't recognize me, what can he do even if I stand before him holding you and the child?" Mabu froze for a moment. Though a flicker of disappointment crossed her eyes, she quickly regained her usual sweet demeanor. "Okay, then, honey. I'll do as you say." Hyūga Teru had a vague idea that she might still want to convince him to stay in Kumagakure. In fact, he was also thinking about how to get her back to Konoha. He wouldn't use Kiddo Matsukami on her unless it was absolutely necessary. After all, her current sweet and docile appearance pleased him immensely. If she could maintain her composure, it would be nice to have her stay at Kumagakure. Before Hyūga Teru could fully grasp the situation, There was a sudden knock on the door. "Mabu, Yi, are you home?" A familiar, cold voice rang out, perhaps with a hint of impatience. Mabu, momentarily startled, immediately remembered the voice's owner and whispered to Hyūga Teru. "That sounds like Samu. Coming to see me so late, seems a little strange." Mabu struggled to her feet and began to dress. Seeing her weakness, Hyūga Teru helped her skillfully. Bang, bang, bang. The door rapped again. Then Samu's impatient voice rang out again. "Mabu, Yi, are you there? If you are, come and open the door." I'm coming. Mabu, dressed in a yukata and wearing slippers, hurried to the door. The door creaked open, revealing Samu, her cheeks flushed and a bit unsteady. She immediately threw herself at Mabu with open arms. Mabu, why are you opening the door so late? Are you still good friends?" Mabu, being hugged so tightly, nearly fell over. Her fat mass felt squeezed, causing a tightness in her chest. She took a breath before frowning and replying. "Why are you so drunk? Did something happen to you? Aren't you going to stay over at my place?" Seeing Samu casually remove her shoes and slowly walk inside, pushing her forward, Mabu immediately sensed something was wrong. But it was mainly because she wasn't welcoming Samu. After all, it was a rare opportunity to sleep with Hyūga Teru. Hearing Mabuai's somewhat reluctant and startled look, Samu couldn't help but hold Mabuai's cheeks and looked at her strangely. "Isn't it just staying at your place for one night? What's the matter? It's not like I haven't stayed at your place before. Could it be that there's someone else here?" Mabuai was a little embarrassed, but in order not to expose Hyūga Teru's existence, she shook her head. "No, it's just, I'm a little too tired and want to rest quietly. How about I take you home?" Samu didn't care after hearing this, took a big gulp of wine and laughed. "I'm usually very quiet, okay? Don't worry. But my chest feels so tight, can you rub it for me?" Uncomfortable chest. Mabuai didn't understand why, but she rubbed it anyway. But one hand couldn't do it all, so she couldn't help but use two hands. Is that the case? Do you want to go to the hospital? Chapter 102 Sharing the Pressure. Keep going, don't stop. I'm already feeling much better. Hospitals and the like aren't any use to me at all. Samu's cheeks grew redder, her eyes blurry. The more Mabuai rubbed, the stranger it felt. Samu grabbed her other hand and rubbed it elsewhere. It felt like it wasn't just her chest that hurt, her body was burning hotter. Confused, Mabuai glanced towards the still-lit bedroom, hoping Hyūga Teru would leave. To her surprise, Hyūga Teru didn't leave. Instead, he transformed into her and walked out. Mabuai was puzzled by his actions. Samu soon noticed the approaching figure and was stunned for a moment when she realized it was Mabuai again. Then, in confusion, she stared at Mabuai, who was rubbing her chest. "Mabuai, are you bored, sleeping alone? Or are you doing something embarrassing, all by yourself?" Samu's expression grew increasingly frivolous. Mabuai, unsure how to respond, blinked repeatedly as he gazed at Hyūga Teru, his face awkward. He probably wanted Hyūga Teru to leave. But Hyūga Teru didn't, instead moving closer. He did so because if he left, Samu, the malicious woman, would likely be in Mabuai's way. He didn't feel disadvantaged by women sleeping together, but Mabuai was exhausted, so he wanted to help her out. So, he assumed Mabuai's persona. "Hey, I get it, I understand. I do it all the time, too. How about we help each other out?" Samu's words left Mabuai even more confused. "What do you mean by doing it all the time? What about helping each other out? What was all that nonsense? And couldn't you just keep your hands to yourself? What if you got bit by a mosquito?" Questions flooded Mabuai's mind, one after another, but before she could even ask, Hyūga Teru preemptively agreed. "Okay, come on in. I'm actually pretty bored sleeping alone," Hyūga said, supporting Samu and letting one hand wander over her body. Samu was practically overwhelmed by his manipulation, and she chuckled. You were acting so serious just now, but I didn't expect your massage skills to be so good. Give me some more massages, and soon. I'll give you a good time." Mabuai was stunned by Hyūga's behavior. After a moment of stunned silence, Samu was taken over by Hyūga. But seeing the man she had chosen groping other women was strange and irritating to her. After closing the door, she immediately leaned over to Hyūga, biting his ear and speaking in a voice only audible between the two of them. "What are you doing, honey? Why did you let her in all of a sudden? And your hands are so restless, Hinata said calmly. I can see she might be looking for you to do something we both love. To prevent you from getting too tired, I'm taking it on for you. What? Looking for something we love? Honey, that's so strange, Mabu murmured, bewildered. But moments later, Hinata brought Samu into the room and displayed a surprising skill that left her feeling embarrassed, angry, and dreadful. The two quickly locked in, each passionately engaging in intense, every-handed effort to please the other. This was probably more than she, already exhausted, could tolerate. It simply left her feeling embarrassed, angry, and incomprehensible. What was Hinata's intention? He seemed to be taking advantage of Samu, yet he held his ground perfectly, as if genuinely sharing her burden. Even when Samu collapsed, completely limp and content, Hinata didn't make any further advances. He simply used his masterful massage techniques to bring Samu to utter bliss. Hubby, how could you do such a thing? How can she face people? Afterwards, when Mabu saw Hyūga Teru coming out, she couldn't help but get angry. Hyūga Teru smiled and put his arm around her waist. Actually, I've met her several times and know that she likes women, especially gentle and lovely women like you. She was planning to come to you drunk, so do I have to send you away obediently? Mabu was stunned for a moment, looking at Samu and then at Hyūga Teru with a strange expression. But, if you do this, how am I going to face her in the future? If she misunderstands that I agreed to her foolish behavior, then I will have to deal with her myself in the future, Hyūga Teru nodded. Yet, if I weren't here, you might have let her succeed half-heartedly. You'd have continued to do this, so I'm taking back some of the interest now, and like I said, aren't you tired? I'll help you take some of the pressure off. After all, she was forcing herself on me just now, and you probably couldn't stop her, nor did you understand the implications of such a thing. Despite this, Mabu still felt Hyūga Teru had more in mind. While it certainly seemed like he was doing it for her own good, she had no other options now. She could only avoid Samu for the future. However, Hyūga Teru then proceeded to explain to her exactly how to massage Samu to feel good, leaving Mabu speechless again. Ahem, there's nothing we can do about it. When I'm gone, you'll have to handle her. So you should at least memorize some of the techniques, or she'll just keep bullying you. Mabu confusion deepened, her womanly intuition telling her that things might not be that simple. But, husband, you can't bear to see her treat me like this. Couldn't you have just kicked her out? Why did you drag her into the house and give her a massage? She's one of the most beautiful women in the village. Don't you really have any feelings for her? It's impossible to say she doesn't have any feelings, but Samu, unlike Nono, is truly feminine, and that's not something she can change overnight. So, Hyūga was a little cautious and pulled Samu into the house. I do have feelings, but it depends on her. If she insists on her old ways, I can't force her. The women in the village are all pretty strong-willed. Maybe she'd do something extreme if I push her. Mabu couldn't help but feel resentful. So you're planning to take it step by step, or what? You must have some special plan, right? Mabu was incredibly clever, and Hyūga couldn't help but want to praise her. Hey, you'll see later. Besides, I'm just finding someone for you to help share the pressure from me. I think she's quite good. Chapter 103 High-Level Decision. Mabu grew even more resentful. But thinking of Hyūga Teru's incredible stamina, she felt she should find someone to share the burden. Besides, according to her inherent beliefs, the idea of a woman liking another woman was truly difficult to accept. Having witnessed the strange scene just now, she knew Hyūga Teru wasn't lying. But husband, can you really turn her into the person you want by doing this? Although she felt a little worried, Hyūga Teru wasn't treating her wholeheartedly. But at least it could correct Samu's bad habits, and if she thought about it, it would be a good thing to guide her on the right path. It was actually quite good. Besides, her original intentions weren't so pure. Allowing more people to inherit Hyūga Teru's excellent genes was also a good thing. Thinking about it this way, having Samu wasn't so hard to accept. Hyūga Teru gave her a reassuring look. Don't worry, husband, I know what to do. Leave her to me. Sooner or later, I'll make her your true sister. Mabu glanced at Hyūga Teru with a sullen look, her face etched with a resentful expression. Okay, then. I'm going to give Samu the bath now. Husband, do you want to join us? Maybe not. But if you don't have the energy, it's fine for me to help. Hyūga Teru thought about it, but then thought of Samu's impressive figure. He felt he might lose control soon, so he stopped thinking about it. After all, they planned to gradually transform Samu. Losing control now wouldn't do. A few days later, Hyūga decision finally reached Konoha. But this aggressive behavior infuriated the Sandaime and the others. Hyūga is so disrespectful to us. They're still demanding a satisfactory explanation from us. What kind of explanation are we going to give them? Yeah, they were the ones who started it, and now they're accusing us of killing the envoys and provoking war because we weren't sincere in negotiating. What kind of explanation are we going to give? A life for a life? Are they going to ask us to hand over those children? The Sandaime and the others were furious, their breathing heavy as if they'd eaten chili peppers. If they were not on the meeting room, they would have wanted to pick a fight. Danzo, on the other hand, was calm and drank his tea leisurely. It was as if he was watching their ugly appearance. Danzo, don't you have any ideas? Are you going to swallow your anger when Hyūga bullies us like this? After saying this, Uchiha gave Midakato a look. The two had discussed before coming here that if things developed in the direction Danzo wanted, she would bring up the matter to Danzo. Midakato had actually thought that Danzo might just watch the joke without saying a word, so he had no choice but to resort to this last resort. After all, women don't need to care too much about their face, and it was also appropriate for Uchiha to bring up this matter first. Danzo's narrowed eyes opened slightly, and he said calmly, I really don't have any ideas. Since they've chosen to push their limits, of course we should fight back angrily, like you have. The only options now are to resist or compromise. Compromise is fine, and there's a good chance of reaching a peace agreement. But the price will be unbearable, so you'll have to figure it out. Danzo still looked indifferent. The Sandaime and the others couldn't help but grimace, but they couldn't blame them. They hadn't agreed to Danzo's plan in the first place, so now they could only reap the consequences. After exchanging glances, the Sandaime spoke. If it weren't for the Nine Tails Rebellion, which killed and injured so many talented people in the village, we wouldn't be so incapable of taking a strong stance now, but continuing to compromise will only make us, the higher-ups, lose more and more of our respect in the eyes of the villagers. Danzo, this isn't something for one person alone. Come with us and think of a solution. Of course, there were some compromises. If Danzo could come up with it, the Sandaime and the others would have, too. But it wasn't the Sandaime who brought it up. With a sigh, Danzo spoke. At this point, if we want to save face, then we naturally have to pass the buck to someone else. Since it was the Uchiha and Hyūga who were so ruthless, wouldn't it be better to let them give Hyūga an explanation? After Danzo's words, the Sandaime and the others visibly breathed a sigh of relief. However, the Sandaime's expression quickly grew more serious. How can that be? Passing the buck to them? Do we think they were not from Konoha? No matter how you think about it, that goes against the will of fire, doesn't it? Midamano-en was the first to interject. Actually, this is the only solution. Why don't we just do as Danzo says? Sacrifices are necessary for peace. Uchiha couldn't help but sigh. Yes, Hirozen, let's do as Danzo says. There's no better way. Whether we resist or simply compromise, we probably can't avoid those two clans. Let them make their own choice. The Sandaime's expression shifted, and after a long moment of deep sorrow, he hesitated before speaking. Well, this is the only way. Not long after the higher-ups made their decision, the Uchiha and Hyūga clans were informed. Fugaku and Hisashi immediately arrived at the Hokage building. After hearing what the higher-ups had said, their expressions changed drastically. Has the village weakened to this point? Hyūga Hisashi lamented bitterly. Fugaku gnashed his teeth, seething with rage. Even if the village is weakened, it should still be able to fight, right? Since it's our fault, why don't we just hold off Hyūga's attack? What's the point of apologizing to Hyūga? They're blaming us, and if we keep compromising, they might just get even more aggressive. Rather than letting them get worse, it's about taking our fate into our own hands. Fugaku's words left the Sandaime and the others looking at each other in astonishment. Hisashi, who had been filled with worry, finally relaxed his confusion and began to look eager. Patriarch Fugaku is right. Since Hyūga is getting more and more aggressive, there's no need for us to be too polite. Although the Uchiha clan doesn't have too many people, with us Hyūga clan members, we should be able to withstand Hyūga's military strength. And it just so happens that we Hyūga clan members have completed the research and development of a new seal, so we don't have to worry about our eyes being taken away by Hyūga. After several months, Hyūga clan members have created a very good seal to protect the Byakugan based on the caged bird. Even if they go out with the Uchiha clan, they will have no problem fighting against the Kumagakure ninjas. However, Hisashi's plan made the Sandai clan and others look unnatural. The office was silent for a while before Midamanen proposed. I am amazed that you two have such courage, but war is not a matter for one person. I think it would be better for you two to discuss with the people in the clan before making a decision. Chapter 104, Fighting Against Union. The sudden emergence of another possibility surprised the Sandai and the others, catching them off guard. Fortunately, Midamanen reacted quickly and immediately came up with a sound response. Hisashi pondered for a moment, then glanced at Fugaku before speaking. The advisor is right. We should indeed consult with the clan before making a decision, Fugaku nodded. Although our clan is valiant and skilled in warfare, as the advisor said, it's best to consult with them, but this doesn't mean we will compromise with Kumagakure. We Uchiha are very likely to fight Kumagakure to the bitter end. The Sandai frowned, but nodded. You should go back and discuss this first. Fighting Kumagakure to the bitter end is no small matter. It's best to consult with the clan members. Yes, Fugaku and Hisashi responded and immediately left the Hokage's office. The remaining few had solemn expressions. I didn't expect the two clans to be so stubborn. I hope they don't all agree to fight at the same time. Yeah, that was a mistake, but the Uchiha clans have always been at odds with us, and as for the Hyūga clan, they're not so obedient to us anymore. The two clans seem to be getting closer. That's not a good thing. The Sandai and his companions, who had originally intended to isolate the Uchiha clans, didn't explicitly see the Hyūga and Uchiha clans getting close. But based on what had just happened, they could vaguely sense that the two clans seemed to have a close relationship, and were even trending closer. However, if both clans agree to fight Kumagakure to the end, there's nothing wrong with them getting closer. Hearing Midamanen say that, Uchiha was puzzled. Why is that? They're two of the largest clans in the village. If they unite, it'll be tough to deal with them in the future. We don't necessarily have to fight them, do we? The Uchiha seem to be doing much better now, and their conflicts with the villagers aren't as severe anymore. After hearing what the third Hokage said, Midamanen nodded. Indeed, but if they decide to fight Kumagakure to the end, the casualties will likely be substantial. While the war has brought them closer, their overall strength will be significantly weakened. If both clans are willing to collectively send people to fight Kumagakure, there are actually many benefits. That's why I didn't immediately oppose them. Although Midamanen didn't fully explain, both the third Hokage and Uchiha had a vague idea of what these benefits meant. If the Hyūga and Uchiha joined forces to fight Kumagakure, their chances of success would be extremely high, and victory was a sure thing. Honoring them under the name of Konoha would be a great opportunity to demonstrate the prestige of the higher-ups. Furthermore, if the two clans fought Kumagakure, the casualties would be substantial. This would also quietly weaken the two clans, achieving their goal of containing them. After realizing this, the Sandai and the others felt a sense of relief. Meanwhile, Hisashi and Fugaku, returning to their clan, quickly convened a clan meeting. The Hyūga clan was no longer what it once was. Now dominated by members of the larger branch clan, the Hyūga clan was remarkably united. Faced with a seemingly provocative challenge from Kumagakure, they naturally rushed to express their determination to fight to the bitter end. Their resolve was unprecedentedly unanimous. As for the Uchiha clan, it went without saying. As soon as Fugaku had made his proposal, the others unanimously expressed their determination to fight to the bitter end. Their momentum was unwavering, as if they were ready for battle at any moment. So, both clans sent out their elites, and within a few days, with the approval of their superiors, they headed to the border to guard against any attack from Kumagakure. The border between the Land of Fire and the Land of Hot Water was also a strategically located defense zone against an invasion from the Land of Lightning. The vast Konoha army settled into a more secure stronghold. Each ninja began to carry out their respective tasks under the captain's orders. Soon, the Hyūga ninja, who had been responsible for the struggle, entered the tent where Hisashi and Fugaku were staying to report the situation. The Kumagakure troops have arrived. It seems they won't give us any time to rest. This is truly the Kumagakure style, Hisashi sighed. Fugaku nodded. Indeed, but we just rested an hour earlier. Even if they come, they won't get any good results, then prepare to fight immediately, Hisashi and Fugaku said, and they left the tent and began to assemble their respective teams. This was a purely Hyūga and Uchiha clan initiative, so there were not many ordinary ninja. However, this was precisely why the clan leaders of both clans were leading the charge. After the usual morale-boosting speech, the two clans split into two groups and marched towards the Hyūga troops. Whoosh, whoosh. Kyūne, flashing with blue arcs, rained down from the Hyūga troops' direction. If stabbed, they would likely not only be stabbed but also electrocuted, paralyzed. But after all, they had experienced war. The Uchiha ninjas reacted immediately. Fire style, great fireball jutsu, balls of blazing fireballs shot up into the air, like giant flaming mushrooms suddenly blooming, quickly blocking the incoming Kyūne. Most of the Kyūne were immediately intercepted, and the remaining ones could be dodged with minimal effort. As a result, the overwhelming Kyūne caused little damage. But then, the ground suddenly began to shake. The Hyūga troops were visible, with smoke and dust billowing behind them. Every ninja in the unit was immeasurably muscular, their bodies radiating terrifying lightning. No, if they keep charging like this, our team will be scattered. Mr. Fugaku, your clan, get behind us. We'll hold them off, alright. Fugaku didn't hesitate, immediately leading the Uchiha clan behind the Hyūga clan. In that instant, Hisashi had the Hyūga ninjas formed into a sharp arrow formation. Each one was calm and composed, with the aura of a lone man standing guard. Brothers, charge. Defeat these guys and take their eyes, charge. At the command of the Hyūga captain, the Hyūga ninjas responded, increasing their speed. In an instant, like thunder, they surged towards the Hyūga ninjas. Return, Guardian. 8 trigrams 64 palms, the Hyūga ninjas surged with chakra, and at the moment the Hyūga ninjas were about to charge, they instantly transformed into giant balls of chakra. Bang, bang, bang. The Hyūga ninjas collided with the Hyūga ninjas, with a loud crashing sound. But the ninjas that were struck were swiftly repelled like spinning tops. Even if a single Hyūga ninja wasn't strong enough to hold on, those behind them would quickly fill in, ensuring the formation never faltered. The Hyūga forces were instantly thrown into disarray. Taking advantage of this moment, the Uchiha ninjas launched a swift offensive. Chapter 105 The Power of Kaleidoscope. But at this moment, although the Uchiha ninjas were full of momentum and could quickly defeat the Hyūga ninjas they were engaging, a cloud of dust rose again in the distance. Hyūga ninjas, even more ferocious than before, were charging towards them at breakneck speed. Not good. If the next wave of Hyūga troops arrives, we could suffer heavy casualties. Yoshiro led the clan members in their attack on the remaining Hyūga ninjas. I'll intercept them. The Uchiha Yoshiro didn't immediately comply, but instead asked with deep suspicion. Clan leader, can you really do this alone? Why not take a few brothers with you? Uchiha Fugaku looked back at the Yoshiro, the 3 Magatama in his eyes rapidly expanding into intricate Meijekyo patterns. No problem. With these eyes, they're no match for me. Is this the ultimate evolution of the Sharingan, the Meijekyo Sharingan? Uchiha Fugaku nodded. Yes, this is the highest evolution of the Sharingan, so you can rest assured and stay here. I'll handle them, understood. I promise to complete the task you assigned, the Uchiha Yoshiro replied firmly, his heart filled with excitement. The Meijekyo Sharingan is an unimaginable existence. While it may not reach the level of the former strongest of the earthly clans, the ninja Shiro, once opened, it can be very close to that level. How could he not be excited to witness the peak of his clan? Just as the Uchiha Yoshiro was earnestly rallying his clan members to quickly annihilate the Hyūga ninjas on the scene, Uchiha Fugaku rushed directly in front of the Hyūga ninjas who had come later. Seeing that Uchiha Fugaku was charging alone, AI and the others who were leading the charge were very surprised. What's going on? Is this guy crazy? How dare he face us alone? How bizarre. With our speed, no one can stop him. Is he courting death? Forget him. He's probably just another hot-headed inheritor of the will of fire. Just grind him into pulp. The Hyūga ninjas were filled with contempt. But the next second, an orange giant suddenly rose from the ground, startling everyone. Over 100 meters tall, the giant wielded a massive two-handed sword, raised high. He looked as if he was about to strike down. Judging by the immense wind stirred up by the sword, this strike could split a mountain. Even the lightning armor, with its strength, couldn't withstand such an attack. A giant this big, this one strike, will cut us into pulp. What kind of method is this? When did Konoha produce such a powerful being? If we keep charging like this, aren't we just courting death? The being crushed and the crushed were instantly reversed. The Hyūga ninjas were so frightened that even their running speed slowed down. Despite his own fear, AI's momentum surged again. Everyone, speed up. Charge before he strikes. Yes, with AI leading the charge, the others didn't hesitate any longer. The arcs of electricity emanating from their bodies grew even larger, and dust billowed behind them like vast clouds. A sudden surge of air, like a flash flood, swirled the dust before the great sword even struck. Charge, AI shouted again. Even as he plunged into the dust, where their lives hung in the balance, he resolutely ordered the charge. Under AI's resolute leadership, the Hyūga Teru ninjas, though terrified, plunged headfirst into the dust like AI. Bang! The great sword struck the ground with a powerful blow, stirring up clouds of dust and sending countless dark red mud flying everywhere. Then, waves of heart-wrenching wails of pain echoed. Bang! AI, leading a large number of Hyūga Teru ninjas through Fugaku Susanu's obstruction, was furious. The fist, laced with arcs of electricity, slammed into Susanu's body. Instantly, cracks appeared in the Susanu's body. At this moment, AI felt that he could still defeat Fugaku with his fists. This only made his irritated expression even more ferocious. They killed so many of my Hyūga Teru, so pay them back with my attacks. However, Fugaku's expression remained unchanged. He folded his arms and looked down at AI. If you think this is all I'm capable of, you're mistaken. Fugaku's eyes raced. Rewind, the scene shifted, and AI and the remaining Hyūga Teru ninjas were once again before Susanu's great sword. The sword was swiftly slashing down, and AI and the others were running at a speed that made it difficult to change course or stop. It was practically unavoidable. But hadn't this scene just happened? AI's mind froze, his suspicions utterly false. He even quickly unraveled the illusion as he ran. But neither he nor the people behind him, no matter how hard they tried to dispel the illusion, could stop the giant sword from falling. The overwhelming hurricane blew their clothes tightly against their bodies, and their faces were slightly distorted. What's going on? Didn't we dodge it a long time ago? This can't be true, this can't be true. We clearly dodged it. If it weren't for the illusion, how would we dodge it now? It's too late. The Hyūga Teru ninjas were filled with despair. AI was momentarily distracted, but the next moment his gaze became firm. There's still a chance. I'll hold the front end of this sword. You guys rush forward. The people behind AI were stunned. But before they could recover, AI shouted again. Everyone, rush forward quickly. I'll hold the sword. With that, AI circled around the group, slowing down and quickly reaching the back. This made the Hyūga Teru ninjas nervous, but AI had already made his choice, and they had no ability to do the same. Only AI and a few other strong men in the entire village could manage such a sudden shift at high speed. While they knew AI was immensely powerful, they lacked confidence in his ability to withstand the blow of a mountain-like sword alone. With tears in their eyes, they rushed forward, hoping to reach him as quickly as possible and relieve some of AI's pressure. Boom! A thunderous roar erupted, shaking the entire wilderness. At the side of the explosion, a terrifying shockwave dented the ground, creating a massive crater tens of meters deep. Dark red smoke billowed into the air, while dark red mud splattered along the sides of the giant sword. Only a few escaped the sword slash. Seeing this, Fugaku sheathed his Susanu, his crimson eyes flashing, and the few who had escaped were stunned. With a swish, the long sword pierced their chests. He single-handedly annihilated hundreds of men, including the Raikage, causing Fugaku to gasp for air. However, it was not time to relax yet. He still carefully inspected the battlefield to see if there were any survivors. Chapter 106 Sasuke vs Neji. After finishing off the helpless Hyūga Teru ninja, Fugaku tied up the Hyūga Teru ninja, whose breath was still lingering. After doing all this, he breathed a sigh of relief. While feeling relieved, he couldn't help but touch his abdomen. Although activating Susanu consumed a lot of his eye power, and his body even ached slightly just now. But somewhere in his abdomen, energy was constantly surging. This was the thing that Hyūga Teru gave him a few days ago. The so-called thing that could solve the burden on the body was actually the earth grudge that was fused with Naruto's blood. He didn't quite understand it at the time, but Hyūga Teru directly showed him the main Gekyo, which stunned him. But it was also the main Gekyo that made him trust Hyūga Teru more. After that, Hyūga Teru directly used black flames to cook, and he didn't seem to be burdened at all. This made him even more curious about the little white worm-like thing that Hyūga Teru gave him. He had used the Mangekyō technique before. However, both future vision and recall left his eyes hazy and his body weak. At this moment, after using up his Mangekyō, the depleted energy slowly returning to normal, making him even more grateful to Hyūga Teru. Isn't this the Fourth Raikage? I can't believe he survived such a direct attack. He's almost dead, though. With these injuries, he probably won't live long. But killing him wouldn't be good. Looking at AI, whose internal organs were spilling out, yet he was still breathing heavily, Uchiha Fugaku frowned. After much hesitation, he decided to keep AI and called in a medical ninja to treat him. There was no other way. If the Raikage died at his hands, a larger-scale war might erupt. Of course, there was also the possibility that Hyūga would be devastated and would need to rest and recuperate for a while. In reality, he preferred to trade the Raikage for a peace treaty. Although it was a peace treaty born under threat, Fugaku felt it was a more straightforward offer. The Hyūga army of nearly 1,000 men was quickly annihilated by the combined forces of the Uchiha and Hyūga ninjas. The Hyūga main force, stationed on the border between the land of hot springs and the land of lightning, also received the news. Morale was immediately shattered. What should we do? We had hoped to use Konoha's unmatched mobility to dampen their spirits, but instead, our army was completely annihilated. The ninja wearing an eye patch couldn't help but look grave. Yes, I didn't expect the combined strength of the Hyūga and Uchiha to be so formidable. Even the Raikage himself couldn't stand a chance. Troy's face was filled with sorrow, his heart trembling, and he was unsure what to do. Mabu, though also worried, sighed a few times and said firmly, "Let's negotiate peace with Konoha. The village can't afford any more casualties." Mabu was deeply disappointed. The Raikage had led them to defeat once again. The Raikage, once considered somewhat irascible but reliable, had now lost his credibility in her mind. If she followed the Raikage to attack Konoha's forces, she might never return. Thinking of this, she hoped even more that Hyūga Teru could return to the village, perhaps even become its cage. However, she knew this was impossible. She could only hope in her belly, and that of Samu, who hadn't yet joined. Giving birth to children of superior bloodlines would raise powerful and wise offspring. With Mabu, Hyūga's foremost sage, speaking, the others fell silent in agreement. Though they were never afraid of danger, facing an enemy that even the Raikage would fail, they knew the consequences of taking action. Even their bravery wasn't without reservations, nor were they so stubborn as to simply throw themselves at the stake. Mabu's choice was clearly the best option at the moment. Mabu quickly headed for the Konoha base. With a small group, she wasn't subjected to much harassment. In fact, Hyūga Teru had already made it clear that anyone in Hyūga could be bullied, except Mabu and Samu. Although Hisashi and Fugaku didn't quite understand why, they were still somewhat convinced of Hyūga Teru's position and had made an agreement with their subordinates not to bully women. Mabu felt a little puzzled. She had somehow entered the base, but there wasn't the murderous atmosphere she'd imagined. Once inside the main tent, there wasn't even a hint of resistance. Aside from discussing the peace talks they'd already been wanting, neither Hisashi nor Fugaku offered any further protests or embarrassment. This left Mabu feeling a bit dazed and unbelievable. Furthermore, the Raikage seemed quite resilient, still surviving despite having his intestines stuffed in. It seemed as if the village didn't need another cage. While she was somewhat dissatisfied with the Raikage, it wasn't a bad outcome. Mabu ignored AI's opinions and simply signed the peace treaty. She'd had enough of this stubborn, life-threatening situation. Nearly 1,000 people had died this time, and while the village wasn't afraid of the sacrifices, they were still sad. She didn't want to see the village suffer any more grief. In a mansion on Uchiha territory, Niji, appearing increasingly delicate, clashed with Sasuke, who had discovered his brother's frequent absences. Although Itachi was displeased with Sasuke's duel with Niji, Hyūga Teru didn't stop him and, seemingly encouraging it, ate watermelon nearby. Though Niji was dressed in women's clothing and his demeanor was increasingly delicate, his demeanor instantly became dignified as he launched into his soft fist stance. Sasuke's expression grew serious, having assumed that a delicate Niji wouldn't be too difficult to handle. However, this aura seemed a bit unusual. Snap, snap, snap. From the moment they clashed, a series of blows erupted, each one sending Sasuke's hair standing on end and his teeth grimacing in pain. Though a delicate girl, she seemed to possess a prickly sting, leaving him with a stinging sensation. In a flash, his grip began to wobble, but his brother was watching. To win his brother back, he couldn't lose. Ha! Sasuke roared, and with a sudden step, he rushed towards Nishi and kicked out with a heavy whip kick. Bang! Nishi blocked Sasuke's whip kick with both palms, and his body only stepped back a few steps, without any injuries. But after Sasuke finished the kick, his face showed great pain as if his leg was broken, and he kept rubbing his legs with both hands. Even if 3-year-old Sasuke was a genius, without Kyuubi and Shuriken, he was only slightly better than the physical skills of a street kid. But Neji was different. Although he had only practiced the soft fist for a short time, he was extremely talented and worked hard enough. The acupuncture points of the soft fist were more proficient than those of adults who had practiced for 5 or 6 years. This was not an equal battle at all. But seeing Nishi calmly put away his offensive, with an elegant and relaxed look, Sasuke became even more furious. Asshole, let's do it again. Chapter 107 Wearing beautiful clothes to become stronger. Okay, Sasuke, stop messing around. Stop it, Itachi's sudden shout made Sasuke whine with frustration. Not only had his brother been taken away, but now he was being mean to him. How tragic. Sasuke felt a surge of grief. He felt like crying. But the person who had taken his brother away was still around, and he felt he couldn't cry. He couldn't lose face in front of her. Sasuke clenched his fists and pursed his lips. Okay, let's all have some watermelon. Eat some watermelon and take a break. Sasuke, come join us. Hyūga Teru brought out a table and set it on several large, sliced watermelons. Because his family was very wealthy, and considering the large number of people who came every day, Hyūga Teru bought a lot of watermelon. So much so that the watermelons he offered Itachi and the others were half-eaten, with a spoon stuck in their mouths. He meant for each of them to eat half a watermelon. Since they were all well off, even though the watermelons were a bit large, they couldn't stop them from finishing them. So, the 3 of them each held their large watermelons and began to eat under the tree in the courtyard. Perhaps because he was older or just particularly fond of watermelon, Itachi finished his portion first. Neji had been eating slowly, but Sasuke's resentful stare and numerous provocative glances spurred him on, suddenly spurring him on to eat more quickly. As a result, the 2 of them finished their watermelons almost immediately after Itachi. Itachi then went back inside, presumably to work on his metabolism. Sasuke and Neji, 2 children still immature, naturally struggled to control their metabolisms. However, since Itachi and the others, who had also eaten watermelon, had already taken over the restroom, they had to wait outside. After a while, Sasuke couldn't hold it any longer and rushed out. The sound of running water echoed in the flower bed, and soon, the sound of running water echoed in another part of the flower bed. Curious, Sasuke quietly looked over and saw something unbelievable. He saw the delicate, beautiful Neji, lifting her skirt and moving in the same way as him. Though the details were a little less obvious, he could still see the same structure. This made him wonder, had he been wearing the wrong clothes all along? 3-year-old Sasuke knew very little about men and women. At this moment, he had no idea that there was such a thing as cross-dressing. In fact, with Sasuke's current understanding, he couldn't fathom the truth behind it. He could only vaguely understand that Neji's clothes were extremely inconvenient, as evidenced by his awkward movement. So, even during their earlier battle, Neji was still being constrained by his clothes? Just how powerful was this guy? Sasuke suddenly understood something, and his gaze towards Neji became even more astonished. Hey, you? Why are you peeking over my shoulder? Neji returned to his usual quiet and adorable demeanor, but his eyes were filled with questioning. I'm sorry, Sasuke was startled, a little guilty, but ultimately, he couldn't suppress his inner doubts. By the way, is it because you wear this suit that you've become so strong? Neji paused for a moment. It seemed that way, but it also seemed that it wasn't. Concerned that Sasuke might reveal his gender, he couldn't help but confirm it. Yes, but now that I've told you this secret, you can't tell anyone else about me. Understand? Sasuke suddenly felt a little strange. Then why are you telling me again? We don't seem to know each other very well, do we? Neji frowned, then thought for a moment and said seriously. Because you're Itachi's brother, that's why I told you. Sasuke was completely stunned. Thinking about it, he felt that maybe Neji admired Itachi and had a good impression of him, so he didn't mind him at all. This made him feel a little pitiful. But, if he didn't know the secret of Niji's strength, he might always lag behind him. A tangled thought swirled in his mind. Even when he returned home, he was still wondering whether he should emulate Niji. Seeing that Sasuke seemed to be confused, Mikoto couldn't help but put a hand on his head. What's wrong? Are you worried about coming home today? Sasuke couldn't help but raise his head and stare at Mikoto's home kimono. Mom, isn't this a little inconvenient for you to wear? Mikoto paused with a puzzled look on her face. Actually, once I get used to it, it's not that troublesome. It's more troublesome to do things in beautiful clothes. What's wrong? Why do you ask that? Sasuke's eyes widened for a moment, then he said thoughtfully. Then Mom, can you give me some beautiful clothes? Huh? Mikoto was even more confused and asked suspiciously, are you talking about beautiful clothes for boys? If you want to be beautiful, the family clothes are not bad, right? Seeing that Mikoto didn't understand what he meant at all, Sasuke shook his head. No, Mom, the pretty clothes I'm talking about are girls' clothes. I want to wear girls' clothes. Girls' clothes? Stunned for a moment, Mikoto paused before asking, what made you want to wear girls' clothes? Aren't boys' clothes bad? Mikoto had never seen a man specifically interested in wearing women's clothes. But considering that missions required women to dress as men, or men as women, she probably assumed Sasuke might be wanting to wear pretty women's clothes because of his training. Sasuke answered without hesitation. I want to wear pretty girls' clothes to train. A glint of understanding flashed in Mikoto's eyes, and she agreed. I see. In that case, let's go to the clothing store with Mom and order a few, okay? Sasuke agreed seriously. Since Nono and Hinata Natsu were both pregnant, Hyūga Teru often had time to visit Samu and Mabu. Mabu usually worked during the day, while Samu was a large cattle farmer, so he had free time after work. Actually, he was quite free during work, too. It's not that she hasn't played in the Koshide before. On the contrary, she seems to like staying in the Koshide particularly. It must be said that Samu is a relatively different woman that Hinata has ever met. And today, he also took out a special thing, with a tip like a siege vehicle, and it was extremely impactful, ready to play a new game with Samu. After the two of them massaged each other as usual, seeing that Samu was out of breath, Hinata took out the tools. Come on, let's play something different today. Is this specially made for me? Samu's cheeks were flushed. Although she saw the tool, she was not too disgusted, but seemed a little surprised. Seeing this, Hinata couldn't help but kiss her. Yeah, what's wrong? Do you like it? Chapter 108, Will the Raikage still assist? Samu, with a shy expression, rolled her eyes at Hyūga Teru. I wouldn't say I like it, but if you want to use it, I'd love it, Samu said, completely exposing herself, every part of her body. Seeing this, Hyūga Teru didn't hesitate, immediately putting all his previously acquired knowledge and the newly acquired tools to use, attempting to gradually transform Samu. Samu was indeed different, her reaction exponentially stronger than before. Even after the act was complete, she still clung to Hyūga Teru, seemingly overreacting. But in reality, this was also extremely difficult for Hyūga Teru. While the transformation jutsu could alter his body, thanks to his god-level transformation jutsu, even the smallest details could be made to resemble each other, his instincts remained the same. Samu felt better, but he felt deeply uncomfortable. After calming Samu, Hyūga Teru observed what Mabu was doing in the Raikage's office. After all, distant water cannot quench a nearby fire. Besides, after Kumagakure went through a great war, Mabu had become more diligent in obtaining his DNA, so it was a good idea not to waste it. So Hyūga Teru decided not to go back to the route to find Yukido, but to find Mabu, who was closer. Mabu was still wearing a plain office outfit, but even though the clothes were not fashionable, it was hard to hide her impressive figure. In fact, the overall look was a different kind of sexy beauty. While she was going to the bathroom, Hyūga Teru immediately used the heaven sentence technique and appeared behind her. Who are you? Take a good guess at who I am. There will be a punishment if you can't guess. Caught off guard, Mabu shuddered all over. However, the familiar feeling in her body slowly let her guard down, and knowing it was Hyūga Teru, she couldn't help but pout. How annoying, husband, how could you come to me at this hour? I'm busy. Well, can't you just wait until I get off work? It really can't be helped. Samu isn't available right now, so I had to ask you. Anyway, you can do more. How can you do more? Husband, you're so strong now, I'm afraid I can't handle it. Hyūga Teru couldn't help but put his arm around her waist and whispered a gentle encouragement into her ear. Believe in yourself, you can do it. According to professional research, special occasions may increase the chances of winning the lottery. This is also to fulfill your wish. How could Mabuai not guess whether it was to fulfill her wish? But, determined not to waste time, she could only suppress her nervousness and anxiety and cooperate. Half an hour passed, Mabuai's body was limp, and she collapsed to the ground, panting and drenched in sweat. She couldn't help but scold and glare at Hyūga Teru, who smiled contentedly beside her. It's all your husband's fault. It's been half an hour. I almost forgot what the Raikage told me. Mabu hurriedly put on her high heels, as if she were about to regain her professional image. But Hyūga Teru didn't let her go, instead hugging her from behind. Since it's such a busy matter, why not tell your husband about it? I'd be heartbroken if you were to go out to work like this. Mabu paused for a moment, then suddenly remembered Hyūga Teru's amazing heaven sentence technique. Speaking of which, husband, if you hadn't told me, I might have delayed my ninja mission. The Raikage asked me to deliver supplies to the border garrison of the Iwagakure ninja. The Iwagakure ninja have been a bit restless lately. After all, the village has suffered many casualties, and they're all elite ninja. The Iwagakure ninja might take advantage of this to invade our country. After listening to Mabu's words, Hyūga Teru pondered the Iwagakure for a moment. But, no matter how hard she thought, she could only think of Kuratsuchi, someone with some good looks, but besides his legs, there was nothing else. Mabu was probably 100 times more capable than Kuratsuchi. The rest of the dust release and the like were too rubbish, he'd rather not have them. In that case, let your husband help you. If you're in danger, you can always come to me with this thing, Hyūga Teru said, thrusting a short kune into Mabu's arms. Having seen Minato's pickup's flying thunder god kune, she immediately remembered it. Holding it in her hands, she felt a sense of surreal wonder. Not to mention Hyūga Teru himself, the yellow-skinned rat that had annihilated hundreds of their elite Kumagakure warriors. Every time she saw one, she'd think of it. It left a lasting impression. And then there was the white-furred rat, with its terrifying shuriken, capable of even severing the Raikage's arm, a truly remarkable existence. With these two little ones helping them, what was there to fear from Iwagakure? They could easily slaughter them all. Though she was thrilled and even considered calling out the two yellow-skinned rats for help, she knew that wasn't realistic. After all, they were Hyūga Teru's pets. Having them save her life now was a blessing. At this thought, Mabu's heart overflowed with gratitude, her azure eyes misting with a hint of lust. Husband, you're so kind. Mabu kissed Hyūga Teru, her feelings aroused again. But remembering the things she still needed to do, she tried to suppress the throbbing sensation. But Hyūga Teru ignored her. She decided to let her have her fill first. Then, anxiously getting dressed, Mabu hurried with Hyūga Teru to the supply storage area. What's going on? As the Raikage's assistant, why are you so slow? Don't you know that transporting supplies is a top priority? That's outrageous. You dragged someone along who has nothing to do with you. If you don't give me a reasonable explanation, we'll report you to the Raikage today and have you dismissed. You're so slow, and your clothes aren't even properly dressed. No wonder Raikage-sama keeps losing battles lately. As soon as they entered the supply storage area, several older, middle-aged ninjas angrily berated Mabu and Hyūga Teru. Before Mabu could reply, Hyūga Teru smiled and said to her, "Wife, since these dogs are barking like that, then you should give up the position of assistant to the Raikage. Focus on raising the children at home, okay?" This left Mabu at a loss for words, though she was actually quite eager. But being completely ignored, the others immediately flew into a rage. "Who are you calling a dog, you brat? You, irrelevant person, get out of here, or we'll be rude." Young people these days have no sense of responsibility. No wonder after being defeated by Konoha, they could only resort to such a pathetic solution as signing a peace treaty. That's right. After all, our Kumagakure is known for its dominance among the other four nations, and we've never suffered such a disgrace. A woman serving as assistant to the Raikage is truly unreliable. The others barked at each other, completely ignoring Mabu's existence, venting all their grievances in an instant. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 109 Worried about being noticed by the Raikage. Bang, bang, bang. Hyūga Teru, clad in blue lightning armor, unleashed a flurry of punches. He instantly reduced the Kumo ninjas in front of him to shrimps, leaving them twitching on the ground. Puff, puff, puff. The moment they fell to the ground, they all lost control of their bladders. Instantly, the entire supply storage room was filled with a foul odor. Mabuai couldn't help but cover her mouth and nose while tugging at the hem of Hyūga Teru's clothes. Honey, isn't this too much? After all, they're all from the village. Hyūga Teru waved his hand and instantly used repulsive force to blast the men out of the room, along with the ground. Instantly, the air in the room became fresh again. It's good enough that I spared their lives. If it weren't for you, they wouldn't have made it. I don't care who they are. I told you long ago that there aren't many people in this village I care about. And right now, you're the only one. If that Raikage dares to bully you, I'll break his legs. Seeing Hyūga Teru's domineering demeanor, Mabu's previous belief that the Raikage was the most domineering man in the world vanished in an instant. She felt only that Hyūga Teru was the true, upright man, a true man of integrity. She felt so secure. Burying herself in his arms, her heart pounded, and she felt the urge to have a bunch of children with him. Hyūga Teru kissed her cheek and caressed her body. Didn't you say we were going to get down to business? Or do you think having children is the real thing? Let's put the transportation of supplies aside for now. Hyūga Teru's reminder immediately caught Mabu's attention. They'd been so engrossed in their conversation that they'd already wasted an hour. Although Hyūga Teru's Tensou Jutsu is very powerful, any further delay would really delay the ninja's opportunity. Mabu immediately lowered her head, her cheeks flushed. Let's do it later, honey. Let's get down to business after we are done, okay? Mabu was so well behaved and motivated, how could Hyūga Teru not like her? Of course, start picking out the supplies you need now, and I'll help you deliver them. Mabu nodded happily. She immediately checked the huge scrolls in the warehouse, and after picking out several, Hyūga Teru piled them together. A flash of golden light passed, and Hyūga Teru, Mabu, and several large scrolls were instantly teleported away. In just a moment, under Mabu's guidance, they arrived outside the Kumagakure border stronghold. Mabu said with surprise upon seeing the familiar stronghold. Honey, you're amazing. You got here so quickly. If I had to do it myself, it would have taken me 2 hours to transport the things a certain distance and travel a certain distance myself. It took over an hour before, but with you transporting the things, it's faster than usual. It's like the wasted time wasn't wasted at all. Mabuai nestled in Hyūga Teru's arms with a look of admiration on her face. Hyūga Teru pinched her hips with great satisfaction. Of course, you go get them to move the things into the base now. I won't be going in. Knowing that Hyūga Teru didn't much like dealing with the people of Kumagakure, Mabuai followed his instructions without much reaction. As soon as they arrived at the base and greeted him, many ninjas wearing Kumagakure forward protectors rushed to the place where the giant scroll was placed. Miss Mabu's arrival is just in time. If it had been any later, we'd be out of weapons, yeah, and food too. I'd love more beef. We've been consuming so much these past few days, I just don't have the energy. We're also running low on medical supplies. It's a good thing Miss Mabu arrived just in time, otherwise so many people would have died in the base. Suddenly, the Kumagakure ninjas expressed their gratitude to Mabu. While she should have accepted what Hyūga Teru gave her, she hadn't accomplished it all herself, which made her feel a little guilty. It's nothing, really. It's the right thing to do. Seeing Mabu's humble attitude, everyone was even more grateful. After arranging everything, Mabu returned to Hyūga Teru's side, but her expression was a little worried. What's wrong? Didn't they all welcome you? Why do you look a little unhappy? Mabu asked sadly. It's all because of those damned Iwagakure burrowing around in the ground like moles, making it impossible to defend against them. They've made several successful sneak attacks, and many people have died in the base. Although Hyūga Teru didn't feel much about these things, this woman had been with him for a long time, and they had known each other for a long time. Seeing that she was a little sad, he couldn't help but want to protect her. Hyūga Teru put his arm around her waist without saying anything. Do you need my help? If you need anything, just ask. Iwagakure has nothing to worry about from me, and killing some people's no problem at all. Is this really possible? Mabuai couldn't help but wonder, but when he thought of the Raikage who had been defeated many times, he couldn't help but worry that Hyūga Teru might also be defeated. If he lost, he wouldn't be as lucky as the Raikage. Just as he showed a little desire, Mabuai sighed sadly. Forget it, though. It's a little tough, but we're still getting by. Let's get back to the village as soon as possible and bring more supplies. Seeing that Mabu didn't ask for anything, Hinata felt relieved. Okay, but if you can't hold on any longer, don't forget, husband, I'll always be there for you. Hinata hugged Mabu from behind again, making her feel warm all over. The scene shifted, and the two of them arrived in a bustling town. Looking at the town, Mabu was puzzled. What's wrong, husband? What are we doing here now? Hinata asked jokingly. Of course, we're just taking a break and doing something we both love. After all, if I perform too well, I'll probably catch the eye of the Raikage or another man. Mabu's cheeks flushed. She knew it made sense and was in line with Hinata's usual principles. But the things they loved. Over an hour passed. Hinata held a pile of bags in one hand, his other arm around Mabu's waist. I'm sorry I tore your clothes again today, but I asked the waiter to buy you a lot of new ones. Go back and see if you like them. Mabuai, already wearing her new office lady outfit, was lying on Hyūga Teru's chest with flushed cheeks, looking a little tired. It's a gift from you, my husband. Mabuai likes it all, but we can't waste any more time like this. Hyūga Teru didn't hesitate and immediately activated the sky sentence technique. The two of them quickly flew towards Kumagakure. In just a moment, they not only returned to Kumagakure, but also accurately returned to the storage area. Mabuai immediately and happily selected the scrolls, preparing to select the next shipment of supplies. Hyūga Teru left for a while to put the newly bought clothes at Mabuai's house. But the moment he returned to the storage room, he saw a scene that made him furious. Chapter 110. Even if the Raikage comes, he will be killed. Damn bitch, you've not only embarrassed the village, but you've also completely disgraced us brothers in the village. I'm going to strangle you to death. Tisk, tisk. Strangling her to death would be a waste. She's still pretty. Since she's embarrassed us, why don't we embarrass her too? No matter how hard we beat you, you won't reveal that man's whereabouts. Since you don't want us to get into trouble with him, we'll just have to take it out on you. The men who had been kicked out by Hyūga Teru and taken to the hospital were now beating the defenseless Mabuai. They showed no mercy and beat her until she vomited blood. Only when Hyūga Teru suddenly appeared did they feel relieved and fainted. Are you all tired of living? Hyūga Teru's cold voice rang out, immediately attracting the attention of the Kumagakure ninjas. Seeing Hyūga Teru's sudden appearance, they showed no fear at all, but instead, amusement filled their faces. What a shame. If you'd come a little later, you could have seen the show. Yes, it seems you care about this woman. If you want her alive and well, you'd better kneel down now. That's right. Not only that, but you have to lick our shoes, or we'll crush her to death. The Kumagakure ninjas, each with a ferocious look on their faces, grinned triumphantly. But the next second, with a crack, one of the men's hands, clutching Mabu's neck, was broken. Hyūga Teru appeared like a flash, enveloping Mabu in his arms. A sharp scream suddenly erupted, and the Kumagakure ninjas, who had suddenly lost sight of Hyūga Teru, immediately realized that one of them had been attacked. But upon realizing it, they found the person they were trying to threaten was already in Hyūga Teru's arms. Although they were a little afraid of Hyūga Teru, they felt relieved when they saw that there was no electric arc flashing from him. They naturally assumed that Hyūga Teru's strength was greatly diminished without his lightning release armor. Furthermore, with Mabu as a burden, if they worked in unison, they could limit his ability to use it, making him an easy target. At this thought, a flicker of disdain crossed the eyes of several Kumagakure ninjas. They exchanged glances, then drew their kunai and lunged at Hyūga Teru. However, having fused himself with 1,000-hand sage's body, Hyūga Teru's physical prowess was already vastly improved. Bang, bang, bang. With powerful, air-piercing kicks, he swept through the Kumagakure ninjas like a phantom. Several of them were instantly sent flying, slamming deeply into the wall. Crack, a crisp, cracking sound echoed as Hyūga Teru landed a foot on one of the ninjas' chests. A chilling scream echoed, and the man's chest gradually caved in. A foot, swathed in immense chakra, plunged completely inside, crushing the ground with the 1 foot. The man's eyes bulged red, his grotesquely twisted limbs moving frantically for a moment before falling completely still. After crushing one Kumagakure ninja to death, Hyūga Teru withdrew his bloody foot and slowly approached the others. Don't come over here, don't come over here, We didn't mean to. We really didn't mean to. You killed us like this. Aren't you afraid of Lord Raikage's wrath? The remaining Hyūga ninjas' faces contorted with terror. They tried everything, even calling out the Raikage, to get Hyūga Teru to stop his rampage. But Hyūga Teru's eyes, cold and indifferent from the beginning, remained unchanged even after hearing the Raikage's words. You guys are such a fool. You think you can scare me by bringing up the Raikage? You dare to bully my wife? Even if the Raikage comes, I'll kill him. So, are you all ready to die? Hyūga Teru's cold questioning voice fell. The room fell into an eerie silence, and all the Hyūga ninjas stared at him in disbelief. But just as Hyūga Teru was about to crush another Hyūga ninja, hurried footsteps suddenly sounded outside. The villagers are coming. You'd better stop messing around, or you'll die without a burial place. That's right. You attacked our fellow villagers. The village won't tolerate you continuing like this. Have some sense and let us go. Otherwise, you won't be able to get out of this door. The remaining few people continued to threaten Hyūga Teru, but he paid no attention. Crack, the crisp sound of bones cracking echoed. Another Hyūga ninja's chest was crushed by the crushing blow. Within seconds, he stopped breathing and his body slowly grew cold. Following the same pattern, Hyūga Teru swiftly crushed the remaining ninjas, mercilessly, as if crushing ants. By the time he reached the last ninja, he was completely incontinent and shaking violently. But just then, several ninjas in Anbu attire suddenly arrived outside and shouted, "Who dares to do such a cruel thing to a fellow villager? Stop it, or we'll be ruthless." However, Hyūga Teru simply turned his head away with a disdainful sneer, then quickly raised his foot and, with a crack, crushed the remaining ninja's chest. A shrill scream echoed throughout the storage room. The Anbu ninjas standing outside were completely stunned. But then, each one, filled with rage, drew their katana from their backs. You guys better think this through. Anyone who crosses me will be killed or injured. If you continue to be stubborn, you'll be the ones who suffer. Hyūga Teru spoke as he treated Mabu. Her wounds healed at a visible speed. Seeing Mabu's appearance, the Anbu ninjas froze in their tracks. What are you doing? Why do you have the assistant Sama in your hands? Are you trying to use her to blackmail us? You've killed so many of my fellow villagers, and now you're holding the assistant Sama hostage. What are you up to? The Anbu ninjas, without giving any explanation, immediately erupted in rage. They even began to slowly approach Hyūga Teru. However, Hyūga Teru remained focused on Mabu, and vaguely sensed the Anbu approaching, so he spoke again in a cold voice. You guys better be smart, or the fate of those guys will be your example. As for holding her hostage, can't you see I'm treating her? The Anbu ninjas looked at each other in bewilderment. They saw that Mabu's wounds were healing at an astonishing rate. Although Hyūga Teru could take Mabu away for treatment, as she wasn't fatally injured, it would still take some time. If the wounds stayed on her body for even a second longer, it would cause her immense pain when she woke up, and that was not what he wanted to see. Chapter 111 Dispute Resolution. The Anbu ninja hesitated to act. After all, Mabu was in Hyūga Teru's care and was receiving treatment. Seeing the wounds on Mabu's face and body, they began to ponder the mystery of the situation. Considering the reports from the deceased, Mabu delayed the ninjas' attack and then attacked them. It seemed perfectly plausible that Mabu had been attacked, and this had infuriated the mysterious man beside her. This man, then, had a close relationship with Mabu, so close that he had even killed everyone who had bullied her. They had actually planned to capture Mabu, after the ninjas in the storage room reported that she hadn't delivered any supplies. Instead, she had stolen village supplies with a man and escaped. But then the two men reappeared in the storage room, and the incident of Mabu being injured and Hyūga Teru's subsequent fury for his beloved had occurred. For a moment, they were unsure who to trust. Of course, the Raikage remained steadfast in his belief that Mabu would not betray him. But they still gave the order to search the entire village, almost as an explanation to the people in the storage room. At this moment, they really found Mabu and the mysterious man, and discovered that they had fought with the previous people. They were really confused. As Anbu ninja, they still had some thinking ability. But they also understood that if the person who reported Mabu was telling the truth, then Mabu would not be able to come back. If the informant was lying, then what was the matter with this serious conflict? Soon, Mabu-i's long eyelashes trembled slightly, and she slowly regained consciousness and opened her eyes. Although the pain in her body had subsided, She still frowned before regaining her focus. Husband, you are finally here. Mabuai looked at Hyūga Teru with a bit of grievance, which made Hyūga Teru feel distressed. But he still pinched her buttocks in annoyance. Didn't I tell you to contact me immediately if you were in danger? Why did you just let them beat you? Mabuai glanced around, stunned by the sight of the Kumagakure ninjas trampled to death. But her attention quickly shifted to the Anbu ninjas, and after a moment's gaze, she whispered to Hyūga Teru. Honey, I'm mainly worried about you. If they call out Hikaru, wouldn't that expose you? Then we can't be together. Besides, they're all from the same village. I didn't expect them to hate me so much. Mabuai was completely baffled. What were these muscle-brained guys thinking? They actually viewed her decision as a foolish move that brought shame upon the village. It was infuriating. Even more infuriating was that not only did they beat her, they also tried to defile her. If Hyūga Teru hadn't arrived just in time, she would have been insulted. The thought filled her with sorrow. She had so much trust in the villagers, believing they wouldn't do anything drastic, yet these people were so ruthless. Perhaps this was one of the people who harbored ill intentions towards her. Perhaps there were even more. This was why she hadn't reacted strongly to the horrific death she had witnessed upon waking. In fact, she felt somewhat relieved and secure. After all, Hyūga Teru had done all this for her. Miss Mabu, could you explain the situation here? We've never heard that this gentleman was your husband, and what happened to make your husband so cruel? No matter what the grudges were, he shouldn't be so cruel, right? Yes, we're all villagers, we should have some tolerance. How could he have used such ruthless force? The Anbu ninjas began to question her, half accusingly. This made Hyūga Teru's tone colder. I say, you guys, without having experienced her pain, are you making unwarranted assumptions? Isn't that a bit too much? Before the Anbu ninjas could react, Mabu stroked Hyūga Teru's chest and soothed her. Hubby, don't be angry anymore. They are just asking about the situation, which shows that they are not unreasonable people. Let me explain it to them. Hyūga Teru nodded slightly. Although he really wanted to take Mabuai with him, Mabuai would definitely not go with him. To continue to maintain her own identity, she must stay in Kumagakure. She must also live a relatively stable life in Kumagakure. It is really not suitable for her to have conflicts with more people in Kumagakure. Seeing that Hyūga Teru agreed, Mabuai relaxed a little and explained to the Anbu ninja. Although the explanation was reasonable, it was one-sided after all. In the end, after arguing back and forth, everyone's eyes fell on Hyūga Teru. To be more precise, they wanted to know whether Hyūga Teru had the magical ability of Tenseigan no Jutsu. If it was proven that he did, it would prove Mabuai's innocence. Mabuai was a little hesitant. In fact, she didn't want Hyūga Teru to be exposed. But Mabuai helped to cover up his identity again and again, which touched Hyūga Teru very much. Besides, he was so powerful that, although he was a little worried about how it would affect Mabu's life, there were some things he couldn't avoid. The lie might be exposed one day. It wouldn't be a bad idea to show off a little now. So, Hyūga Teru led the Anbu ninjas, experienced the light-speed heaven sentence technique, and returned to the hidden cloud village. The rumors of Hyūga Teru and Mabu not doing their jobs were self-defeating. Furthermore, the news of supplies received from the front lines further confirmed their innocence. Besides, compared to the dead, the living Hyūga Teru and Mabu were obviously more valuable. They didn't exaggerate or say too much against the two, but simply reported what Hyūga Teru and Mabu did. Although it was a little biased, AI frowned at hearing it. But hearing that those dead guys had beaten women and even wanted to defile Mabu, he immediately became furious. He suppressed the matter completely, and ordered the families of the deceased who came to the door to stop making trouble. It must be said that AI's style is still very good. Especially the point of protecting his own people, which made Hyūga feel very satisfied. This also made him feel at ease that Mabu could continue to stay in Kumagakure. However, compared to before, there was a black cat with Mabu, which was specially given by Hyūga for her to carry with her. In fact, it was Pikachu transformed. Originally, Pikachu was wanted to come, but considering that thing was too sexy, Pikachu was replaced. Disguised as a black cat, it became Mabu's pet. After experiencing a turmoil from within Kumagakure, there were no more people who made things difficult for Mabu in Kumagakure. Instead, Iwagakure became a problem. Not only did they often attack Kumagakure, but because Kumagakure's supplies were consumed quickly, Hinata had to help Mabu transport supplies. Chapter 112 Rapid Progress. Suddenly working for Kumagakure, Hinata felt strange. Although Mabu, Samu, and Yukito were indeed repaying his efforts, but, even if he left Konoha, no one would dare to order him around. He basically didn't go on missions in Konoha anymore. After all, with Hisashi helping him, he was happy to have some free time. But think about it, Kumagakure is in such a bad state right now. It has something to do with him, so it seems there's nothing wrong with helping out a little. But he didn't know when he would have some free time. After about a month, Hinata was getting impatient with Iwagakure. This village seemed to be going on forever, trying to take down Kumagakure in one fell swoop. Although Mabu didn't say anything, Hinata's transportation of supplies increased significantly, and he had a vague feeling that the fighting was getting more intense. In the past month, even though his workload was light, he often had legitimate opportunities to go on honeymoons with Mabu. He could continue to cultivate Samu's new hobby, but he hadn't stopped transporting supplies during this month. Although life was pleasant, the presence of Iwagakure, the troublemaker, in the middle of it all was rather disconcerting. He could see the weariness on Mabu's face from time to time, while Samu occasionally had to go to the front for a shift. Hyūga Teru had been waiting for Mabu to speak, but she remained silent, insisting on relying on everyone's efforts. Perhaps she didn't understand his strength and felt that taking on the Iwagakure forces was somewhat risky. That's why she hadn't asked for help. But Hyūga Teru couldn't wait any longer. A village with such low appearance, that had disrupted his life for so long, and meant so little to him, didn't need to be shown mercy. They weren't good people anyway. They sent tens of thousands of ninjas to wear down a Raikage. Now they were going to seize Hyūga's territory. While this was normal for conquests in war, since Iwagakure had chosen to invade, they naturally had to prepare to be invaded, or even annihilated. Even if he didn't act now, someone else might. Furthermore, if he did, he could exercise some measure of caution, avoiding excessive bloodshed. A night of terror for the Iwagakure village passed. The exhausted people in the Kumagakure base had just awoke when they heard the alarmed cries of the scout ninjas who had been monitoring the village. The Iwagakure village has retreated. The Iwagakure ninja army has retreated. The cheers reached the Kumagakure base, sending the entire base into a frenzy. No way. We've been on the verge of collapse for so many times. Is this a lie? It's unlikely the Iwagakure will retreat. What's going on? Could it be that the Raikage's arrival frightened them and they retreated? Ai had been at the base for only a few days and had fought several battles. While she had inflicted considerable damage on the Iwagakure village, she was powerless against the Soaring Inoki. They couldn't figure out the reason, so they could only blame Ai for the Iwagakure's retreat. Amidst the resounding joy, two voluptuous women embraced each other. Under the astonished gazes of many, they kissed passionately. Samu. That's enough. Everyone's watching, unable to resist Samu's enthusiasm. Mabu responded briefly before moving away slightly. After Samu released Mabu, she couldn't help but gaze at her with fondness. Now that you have a husband, you've forgotten about me, your good sister. You really don't know what's so good about men. How about you take me to see your man when we get back to the village? Mabu was startled. You don't really want that, do you? I don't mind, but please don't force it. Mabu was tempted to pull Samu in, but the thought of succeeding would have made her feel a little guilty. But Samu held her face firmly in his hands. As a ninja, you could be dead at any moment. I think it's best to stop suppressing myself and experience the man I'm attracted to see if he's as good as you say. You don't mind, do you? After all, for most people, that's a serious offense. What Samu didn't say was that ever since Hyūga Teru had sex, she had been feeling a little unsatisfied. Sometimes she dreamed about that incident. But upon waking, she felt empty, a sense of melancholy. The harshness of the war with the Iwagakure village had only confirmed her desire to experience the feeling of her dreams. This led her to formally bring it up with Mabu. After all, Mabu was close to her, and his judgment was likely correct. Mabu hesitated for a moment, then, thinking of Hyūga Teru's dedication to her over the past month, nodded. Then let's go back to the village and be together. But don't tell anyone. I still want to stay. Mabu blushed deeply, and Samu rubbed her cheek. What nonsense. If you stay in the village, then I won't too. Isn't it the same? Mabu nodded silently, agreeing with Samu. After Ai learned of the Iwagakure retreat, he didn't rush his ninjas back. After reviewing the situation, He ordered the majority of his troops to withdraw. Although he couldn't figure out what was going on, it was a good thing anyway, so he didn't pursue it further. He just kept a little watchful eye on the border, just in case something unexpected happened. Hyūga finally settled down. Hyūga Teru was enjoying an incredibly happy life. Samu, who had been undergoing transformation for a long time, had finally completed her transformation. Just as he had imagined, she began to be interested in men. The first time was when she met Mabu again. It was a first for Samu, and actually a first for Hyūga Teru himself. In short, it was an incredibly wonderful experience. Mabu and Samu were especially so. Both of them had equally hot bodies, one with rosy skin, the other with snow-white skin, both perfectly displayed before him. Almost instantly, he couldn't hold it any longer, and the two-person game suddenly turned into a three-person game. This wonderful life lasted for more than a month. Hyūga Teru finally regained some of his thoughts and began to think about serious matters. Since Iwagakure's attack on Kumagakure had failed, the stalemate with Konoha was no longer a problem. He also withdrew from the attack on Konoha. Kirigakure was like a fool, and was slow to react, becoming the last village to have friction with Konoha. But this had no effect on Hyūga Teru. He was too lazy to care about these things. His main focus was on the tailed beasts in the major villages. As time went on, the Hokage's office also became the place for SYNOPSIS. With a god-level flying thunder god technique, he no longer needed to run around too much. Wherever he needed to go, he could almost reach it with just a thought. Therefore, the Root Intelligence Network provided great help, allowing him to quickly find the tailed beasts distributed in various places. Every time Ichuriki was defeated, he would be given a mini-tailed beast as a reward. Only half a month later, he had collected the remaining many-tailed beasts except the 9 tails. Chapter 113 The Island of Spiritual Beasts. Ichiriku Ramen. Birdman, are all the ingredients washed? Ichiriku called out to the kitchen. A masked, tightly wrapped blonde boy walked into Ichiriku's work area, carrying a large bucket of vegetables. Everything's washed, uncle. By the way, when's dinner? Ichiriku squinted at the boy known as Birdman and smiled. Hungry so soon? Have a tomato to fill your stomach later. We should be sold out soon. Thanks for your help. It wasn't actually winter yet, the early days of autumn weren't particularly cool. Birdman, dressed like this, was already sweating profusely upon arriving at Ichiriku's place. But there was no other way. Birdman was actually Naruto dressed up in a different name. The villagers disliked Naruto, fearing it might affect his ramen business. So, Naruto had to wear warm clothes and change his name to Birdman. The reason Naruto came to work and live with Ichiriku was mainly because Ichiriku had taken pity on Naruto and offered him a bowl of noodles. Just then, someone happened to come in for some noodles and suddenly asked Ichiriku to take Naruto on as his apprentice. Ichiriku initially refused, but Hyūga Teru offered so much, plus guaranteed it wouldn't affect his business, so he agreed. Naruto had been working there for several months. Initially a bit clumsy, he was now quite capable of doing many things. While he was still a long way from being a ramen chef, helping out was no longer a problem. Naruto's incredible stamina saved him and a lot of time. He had initially worried Naruto might be a hindrance, but now he had a greater appreciation for him. Feeling Ichiriku's kindness, Naruto didn't complain much about Ichiriku's busy schedule. Instead, he obediently went into the kitchen and ate his tomatoes. The host has completed Naruto's personality growth sign-in. Congratulations. The host has received a mini 9 tails and a set of Rinnegan jutsu. Hyūga Teru, happily enjoying himself in Kumo village, suddenly heard the system notification chime. A flood of memories flooded his mind, making it feel a bit dizzy. Involuntarily, she sat up between Mabu and Samu. Honey, what's wrong? Is there something you need to do? Mabu, slumped limply to one side, clutching Hyūga Teru's clothes with one hand, asked, a hint of reluctance in her eyes. What's wrong? Aren't you satisfied yet? Want more? Hyūga Teru couldn't help but smile and turned back. Elsewhere, Samu's voice rang out in a grumble. You're so amazing, who wouldn't be satisfied? I just wanted you to take us to the beach. After all, your sky-flying technique can send you flying far away, right? Hyūga Teru scratched his head and smiled. Of course I can take you, but don't you bring beach clothes? Like a swimsuit or something? After spending so much time together, Samu, despite her aloofness, was actually incredibly clingy. Her combat prowess far surpassed Mabu's. making her one of the few capable of battling Hyūga Teru for a prolonged period. Even if they combined forces, they were no match for him, now possessing a thousand-handed physique. During their resting time, he'd actually recovered. Though he still wanted them to rest a bit longer, the fact they decided to go to the beach had him feeling excited again. It wasn't every day they could play games together, so this chance to be together was a rare occurrence. They'd been hanging out with Hyūga Teru for quite some time, playing every kind of game imaginable. As soon as Hyūga Teru mentioned swimsuits and the like, he knew what he was up to. Of course, I've been planning this before, otherwise why would you think we'd bring it up? Samu remained unimpressed, even though she'd been acting coldly for so long. But her warmth was truly her true nature. Whenever they played games, she was the one who had the most fun. Hearing Samu's words, Mabu quickly nodded in agreement. But, honey, please take care of our stomachs. How about making us a seafood feast by the sea to help us recover? Hyūga Teru looked at Mabu tenderly. Even if you don't tell me, I'll take care of it. Just pack your clothes, I'll take you there in a minute. Upon hearing Hyūga Teru's promise, the two excitedly rushed to the closet to get their clothes. It was another day of fun, but Hyūga Teru still had to take out his recent reward. Without notifying the two women, he headed to the tailed beast's location and found a good beach. However, upon arriving, they suddenly discovered the eight tails and the other tailed beasts on an island, having captured a number of men in white coats. Hey, boss, what are you doing here? I just wanted to tell you we've found the island of summoning beasts. I'm so sorry, boss, we took the initiative and captured them all. It's mainly because they mistook us for monsters and attacked us first, but they don't seem like good people either. They don't care about the lives of the summoned beasts, just letting them attack us relentlessly. The tailed beasts spoke one after another, quickly explaining the situation. This also made Hyūga Teru understand who those trembling white-coated men, surrounded by the tailed beasts, were. After gazing at them for a moment, Hyūga Teru's gaze fixed on the girl pinned down by Madaryu. Mata-chan, there's no need to treat her like this. She's just a woman. Are you afraid you can't defeat her? Madaryu's face immediately showed embarrassment. Master, this woman seems to be from the Uzumaki clan and knows how to seal. So she must be restrained, otherwise it'll be very troublesome. Hyūga Teru smiled. Then why don't you have Vulpix spray her with slime to make it difficult for her to attack? This, Madaryu couldn't help but look at Vulpix. Vulpix actually gurgled in its mouth parts, and with a tisk sound, a large ball of white liquid splashed towards Madaryu. Madaryu dodged nimbly, but the red-haired girl was the victim, completely covered in the white liquid. Her face was extremely grim, and she screamed and shrieked in fear. Seeing this, Hyūga Teru didn't pay much attention and pointed at Yabi and said, Old 8, hurry up and catch some good fish. I'll bring your hostess over to eat grilled fish later. The rather large Yabi couldn't help but straighten up all over. Okay, boss, I promise to catch the freshest and most abundant fish for you. After making this promise, Yabi immediately dived into the sea. It set off astonishing waves, and the people who were caught were startled. However, Hyūga Teru still ignored them, but stretched out his hand to the void and began to release Nine-Tailed Fox. Roar! A shocking roar suddenly sounded. The moment the huge orange figure appeared, the clouds in the sky seemed to be stirred. Chapter 114 The Ultimate Spiritual Beast. What kind of terrifying monster is this? Is it also a tailed beast? Wow, it's huge, and its aura is terrifying, like a natural disaster. I thought the 8 tails bowing to that man was already astonishing enough. I didn't expect the even more powerful 9 tails to be so respectful to him too. Many of the less knowledgeable found the 9 tails' appearance terrifying. Those who learned it was the 9 tails were even more shocked. Although they had rarely heard of tailed beasts being used as summoning beasts, as beings who had spent their lives studying them, they knew that the tailed beasts were the most powerful on the continent. If they had limited resources, they would have tried to study such creatures and see what the results would be if they were used to cultivate them. And now, these powerful creatures, rarely seen before their eyes, not only appeared before their eyes but also respectfully obeyed the mysterious man's orders. Especially when the 9 tails, which appeared last, bowed its head obediently. The researchers on the entire Summoning Beast Island were completely stunned. Master, what can I do for you? Though it could be called a mini 9 tails, its 1/3 chakra capacity still made it nearly the size of a small mountain. After all, in the original story, Naruto relied on half of the 9 tails to reach peak strength. While 1/3 might be less, it was still a lot. At the very least, the chakra of a full 9 tails far exceeded the combined chakra of the other tailed beasts. 1 against 8 shouldn't be a problem. However, Hyūga Teru gathered them all, primarily so they could become the 10 tails, allowing him to become the 10 tails Jinchuriki. Though on second thought, it wasn't necessary, considering the Senju's sage physique was already strong enough, likely rivaling 6 Paths Madara or even Kaguya. Still, it was an experiment, to see if becoming the 10 tails Jinchuriki could further strengthen him. Little 9 tails, since you 9-tailed beasts don't have Gaiden demon statue, can you become the 10 tails? Hyūga Teru asked after a moment's deliberation. The 9 tails frowned slightly, then shook his head. No, we're independent entities, unable to fuse on our own. We're at most nutrients within the outer path statue, distinct from the entire outer path statue. Nutrients? That metaphor seems a bit strange. But if they can't fuse into the 10 tails on their own, do they really have to steal the outer path statue? Speaking of which, the outer path statue is probably just the shell of the divine tree, right? Many thoughts flashed through Hyūga Teru's mind, even to the point of wanting to cultivate a divine tree. He might not have the skills himself, but these people did. Oh, and it seems cultivating a divine tree isn't necessary. Even if a divine tree is cultivated, how can it become like an outer path statue? That's still a big question. Might as well try the specialties of the summoning beast island. Hey, who's in charge here? Hyūga Teru asked, approaching the Karen group of men in white lab coats. One of them, a portly middle-aged man, adjusted his glasses and looked at Hyūga Teru with a fawning expression. Sir, I'm the island's chief researcher, Oshima Yoima. Do you have any instructions? Hyūga Teru looked at the middle-aged man with a hint of surprise. What makes you so sure I need you? Aren't you worried I'll just kill you? Far from being frightened, the researcher seemed excited, as if he already knew what Hyūga Teru was up to. While it wasn't hard to guess, Hyūga Teru wanted to understand the scientist's true intentions. Oshima Yoima wasn't afraid either, remaining cheeky. No, sir, your men are so obedient to your wishes and don't kill innocent people. Either you think we're still useful, or you're not a bloodthirsty person. Hyūga Teru couldn't help but smile intriguingly. Whether I'm a bloodthirsty person or not is another matter. I do have something to ask you. I heard you're pursuing the ultimate summoning beast. How is the progress? The ultimate summoning beast is a magical creature found in anime. Made of unknown materials, its juvenile form resembles a giant human doll, but when it matures, it becomes a terrifying, uncontrollable monster. It can devour any summoned beast and inherit their abilities. While it's unknown whether a tailed beast can inherit a tailed beast's abilities, it's still a good idea to give it a try. After all, besides the outer path demon statue, this thing is barely qualified to devour a tailed beast. Upon hearing what Hyūga Teru said, Oshima Yoima was utterly astonished. He paused for a moment before scratching his head and speaking. I don't know how you heard about the ultimate summoning beast, but we've already reached a crucial stage in our experiments, and it'll take another year to complete. Hyūga Teru didn't understand what they were supposed to do in the meantime, so he continued asking regardless. If you were to join the tailed beasts, would you be able to do it? I heard your ultimate summoning beast can devour any summoned beast and inherit its abilities. If it were a tailed beast, would it still be able to inherit them completely? Upon hearing what Hyūga Teru said, Oshima Yoima's eyes nearly popped out of his head. He hadn't dared to even think about experimenting with the tailed beasts, but this mysterious person actually had exactly that in mind. The thought of experimenting with the catastrophic tailed beasts filled him with ecstasy, his body trembling with excitement. Yes, sir. While it might take quite a while to recultivate them, it's not impossible to devour a tailed beast. However, during this process, I hope you'll allow us to take samples from them. Don't worry, sampling won't affect them in the slightest. We'll just use their chakra or their hair for experiments. Oshima Yoima couldn't hide his desire for the tailed beasts, which made the beasts, who were always so terrifying and seemed ready to eat people, feel uneasy. However, Hyūga Teru nodded decisively. I can let them cooperate with you in your research, as long as their lives are guaranteed, but you must remember not to do too many stupid things. My ability to subdue the tailed beasts is no accident. If you think you can defeat me by combining their powers, you are completely wrong. Besides, you can't control your ultimate summoning beast by yourselves. Not even the girl can control it. I won't tell you the specific reasons. Anyway, whenever you encounter danger, inject chakra into this Kune, and I will rush to you as soon as possible. Hyūga Teru said as he gave Oshima a flying thunder god kunai. Oshima was puzzled for a moment, then opened his eyes wide. Could it be a flying thunder god kunai? Are you the fourth Hokage? No, that's impossible. Rumor has it that the fourth Hokage seems to have sacrificed his life in the battle with the Nine Tails. Chapter 115, Yikang, long time no see. I'm not the fourth Hokage, and these tailed beasts are actually different from the 9 on the mainland. Anyway, I'm giving you this opportunity to study the tailed beasts. It depends on whether you can seize it. For researchers, high-end research materials are as exciting as women in uniform. They can't wait to rip their clothes off and find out what's inside. Oshima nodded quickly. Understood. Everyone on this island will do their utmost to obey your orders. Hyūga Teru nodded without further comment. After everything was settled, Oshima and the others returned to their island residence to continue their research. However, they were accompanied by numerous tailed beasts, which surprised and frightened them. Hyūga Teru, along with Mabu and Samu, set up a boiler grill and cooked a large amount of fresh fish caught by the 8 tails into delicious dishes. Seafood noodles cooked in the boiler, and various grilled fish were placed on the grill. The group enjoyed the meal with great pleasure. Mabu and Samu's torrid figures threatened to burst through their swimsuits, as if they would burst with any movement. Seeing this, Hyūga Teru was furious, wishing he could transform into a hungry wolf. If it weren't for the other people on the Summoning Beast Island, Hyūga Teru would have thrown everything into a frenzy of excitement at the beach with him. However, he restrained himself, considering the poor surroundings. So, after their beach fun, Hyūga Teru took the 2 to a high-end hotel. The 3 of them soaked in a hot spring and played all the games they hadn't played on the island. That night, Hyūga Teru, tightly entangled by Mabu and Samu, struggled free to get a drink of water. Suddenly, he felt summoned, much to his dismay. He responded to the call and found himself in a valley littered with shurikens and kunai. In the densest area, a small creature repeatedly called out Pikachu, beckoning him with its tiny hands. Minato Pika, possessing the flying thunder god jutsu, was now extremely nervous. While unleashing medical ninjutsu, he even managed to tend to himself. He wondered if he was unaware of Hyūga Teru's ability to resurrect people. Hyūga Teru didn't rush forward, but instead took in the surroundings and Minato Pika's location. With so many shurikens and kunai stuck in the ground, it must have been someone. But not only was there no one, but the valley was also utterly silent. With his Byakugan activated, Hyūga Teru detected a few faint wisps of chakra. Such weak chakra could only be produced by the recently deceased. This explained the profound silence. In fact, as he approached the woman Minato Pika was treating, Hyūga Teru understood the situation. It was none other than Yakura, whom he hadn't seen in ages. He had assumed, after all this time, that her village wouldn't betray her. But betrayal had happened nonetheless. Ultimately, it suited Hyūga Teru perfectly. He would have felt wronged if it hadn't happened. Arriving at Yakura's side, Yakura's breath was already extremely weak. It seemed as if she would die at any moment. But Hyūga Teru was carefree and simply pulled out the shuriken and kunai that was affecting her back, and began to treat her promptly. This shocked Minato Pikachu terribly. Especially when the kunai and shuriken were pulled out, he could clearly see Yakura shudder in pain and then die. But her gradually cooling body slowly warmed under the blue chakra light. Her breath gradually recovered and became long. Pikachu, knowing Minato Pikachu's confusion, Hyūga Teru smiled and said, "Don't be so surprised. After all, you're not a magical being, are you? It's not surprising that I could revive her, right? You're quite quick, actually. I helped take care of the surrounding debris before I arrived." Minato Pikachu was stunned, but after hearing Hyūga Teru's praise, he immediately clenched his fists and struck a handsome pose with pride. "Pikachu, I know you can do it. You should go back soon." "I've already healed her," Hyūga Teru said, picking Yikang up. Minato Pikachu was stunned for a moment, then nodded and disappeared. Hyūga Teru then used the Divine Heaven Sending technique to take Yikang to a bustling town far away from the land of water. The next morning, the morning sun streamed through the door, gradually warming the inn and making it very comfortable. But Yikang, who frowned even when sleeping, couldn't help but look pained and muttered hurriedly. Why are you doing this to me, Tada?" As soon as Yikang uttered the painful question, he sat up reflexively. But the hard feeling of the solid floor, the aching sensation all over his body, and the clear feeling of being in complete control of his body when he sat up, made Yukang understand immediately. She wasn't dead, she was still alive. What is going on? How come I am still alive? Where's this place? However, when Yukang just glanced at the room, she saw Hyūga Teru, who was paying close attention to her, staring at her with a faint smile. After all, it was such a big commotion, and Hyūga Teru had actually gotten up long ago and left the arms of Mabu and Samu. Not only did he make breakfast for the two of them, he also prepared one for Yukang. Wake up, eat something. Although your body is not too weak, you will still be a little tired after experiencing such a thing. You are not. Yukang's beautiful eyes opened wide, and she stuttered for a long time before saying, how come you saved me? I don't think I used that kunai, Hyūga Teru said with a chuckle. If the Flying Thunder God technique relied solely on the kunai, it would be too vulnerable. In fact, the moment Hikaru defeated you, he also left a mark on you. It's a very advanced one. Normally, it's invisible, but it's constantly monitoring your physical condition. If your vital signs weaken, the technique will be triggered immediately. In other words, Hikaru arrived at your side shortly after you were attacked last night. Yukang knew that the Hikaru Hyūga was referring to was the yellow-skinned rat that had wiped out hundreds of ninjas, including her. Hearing about its miraculous power, Yukang was even more astonished. But upon regaining consciousness, she saw that her clothes were clean and comfortable, pajamas made of expensive silk. The quilt was warm and light. Having stayed in high-end hotels before, she knew it was no ordinary quilt. It was probably the finest goose down. She didn't mind Hyūga's generosity. But why would he go to such lengths for her, even helping her change her clothes? This was clearly abnormal. Especially since they were alone in the same room. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 116 Yukang's Reserved. However, she had never cared much about matters between men and women. She sulked for a moment, but then, considering it was Hyūga Teru who had saved her, she stopped dwelling on it and focused instead on the betrayal. She had clearly heard the Kurigakure ninja say she'd been betrayed by the village. Whether that was true or not, she didn't know, but the village was definitely not completely free of problems. Perhaps someone in the village was indeed targeting her. After all, so many people had died because of her. It was only natural that some people hated her. Yakura's thoughts at this moment differed greatly from the original novel. In the original novel, after her death, she harbored a deep resentment towards the village. After her resurrection through the impure world reincarnation, it was as if everyone in Sunagakure and elsewhere were feasting on her revenge. Killing was a source of immense pleasure for her. However, because she had previously revealed Hyūga Teru's secrets to the higher-ups, causing the village to suffer tremendous losses, she felt immense resentment towards the village. So, now that she knew she was still alive, she didn't immediately express her resentment towards the village. At most, it was as if she had just thought of something that infuriated her. She clenched her fists tightly, her teeth grinding. At that moment, Hyūga Teru brought over a large clay pot. Though the pot hadn't been opened, the faint aroma immediately caught Yukang's attention. Gurgle, suddenly, a loud stomach growled in the silent room. Hyūga Teru, who happened to be leaning in close, heard it all. Even Yukang, who usually had little interest in men, couldn't help but blush. Tisk, you look hungry already. Better stop being so reserved and eat as much as you can. She had been planning to be reserved. After all, Yukang was known for her steely character. But the moment the lid of the clay pot was lifted and the intoxicating aroma emanated, tears streamed from Yukang's mouth. Slurp. Hastily, Yukang wiped her lips, but the sight of Hyūga Teru was unseen, and her face immediately turned red. You're already that old, what's there to be shy about? You're a hero of Sunagakure, after all? You're so reserved about a bowl of noodles, Hyūga Teru teased, amused. Yukang was in a state of mixed emotions. She actually didn't know how to feel about Hyūga Teru herself. There was clearly hatred between them. Ever since she'd revealed Hyūga Teru's secrets to Chihiwa and the others, it had already been a life-or-death struggle. Yet, despite being in such a dominant position, Hyūga Teru didn't kill her. She still couldn't understand why. Now that she'd been rescued from Kurigakure, it was even more baffling. So, in Hyūga Teru's presence, She instinctively hesitated. She deliberately tried to keep a distance from him. She even tried to feign reserve to conceal her inner feelings. In reality, she was as frankly craving noodles as her saliva. Despite her inner howling, Yukang maintained an unfazed demeanor and accepted the clay pot. "Where did you buy this noodles? Are you still selling them? I want more." Hyūga Teru was clearly teasing, and Yukang was asking to distract her, not wanting to be pricked in her self-consciousness. However, Hyūga Teru stared at her relentlessly. "You want to eat more, but you can't just spend money. The best way is to please me. See if I'm in the mood to make you another portion." Slurp. The distinct slurping sound abruptly stopped. Yukang stared at Hyūga Teru in disbelief. "You mean, you made this noodles, God, are you really making this?" Yukang's expression grew increasingly surprised, and her consuming the noodle seemed tinged with an uncontrollable urgency. Though she appeared to be suppressing herself, her strange expression betrayed her. She hadn't added any chili peppers, but she seemed to be spicing it up. Her face flushed red, and her tongue formed a deep, hollowed shape, as if trying to completely absorb the noodles. Come to think of it, her exaggerated expression while eating noodles was a bit like she'd eaten spicy peppers. Her face flushed red, and tears could be seen trickling down her cheeks. Hyūga Teru looked at Yakura's exaggerated reaction, speechless. He'd told her not to be so restrained, but it seemed she wasn't even trying to be reserved. "Of course I made those noodles. Who else could have made Yakura, the master of Sunagakure Scorch Release, look like that?" Hyūga Teru's reminder immediately dawned on Yakura. Her expression was a bit inappropriate. No, it was completely revealing. After all, as the maker, Hyūga Teru must have known whether the noodles were spicy or not. If they weren't spicy, and she still had that expression, she must have been crying because of the delicious food. She was crying because of the delicious food in front of the maker. Wait, now doesn't seem like the time to praise someone's cooking skills. Subduing her emotion, Yakura couldn't help but appear aloof and cleared her throat. "Putting aside the noodles, why did you save me? After all, I caused you trouble before. Shouldn't you be wishing me dead?" "Trouble?" Hyūga Teru shook his head. "Actually, I have to thank you for causing me the trouble. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to meet the Raikage's secretary. Come to think of it, I haven't thanked you properly yet. Although you may find it hard to understand, the truth is, I simply never took your trouble seriously. But don't you feel any sadness or joy at all? After all, you've been betrayed by the village you've always trusted." Yukang was surprised, but his mood softened after a moment. Betrayal is indeed a little hard to believe. After all, I made great contributions to the village, even though I caused it great losses before, but not only do they erase my contributions, they even want me dead. It's simply incomprehensible. Yukang was furious. Hyūga Teru felt that this reaction was correct, but then he thought about it and felt something was wrong. "Your reaction doesn't seem particularly strong. It's not even as appealing as my noodles. Could it be that you still have some hope for the village?" After Hyūga Teru's reminder, Yukang immediately put down his chopsticks with a strange look on his face. "Then how should I react? Should I cry my heart out for a while, then go and kill the villagers without caring about anything? Come to think of it, Kurigakure said they were collaborating with certain people in the village to kill me. Ultimately, it was Kurigakure themselves who wanted to execute me, right? Whether they were deliberately trying to piss me off, I'm not sure. How could I harbor such a deep hatred towards the village before I knew the specific situation?" Chapter 117. The night is so beautiful. Frankly, she still trusted her village. She unilaterally assumed it might be Kurigakure, and then went back on her word and tried to harm her. This baffled Hyūga. After all, Yorizuaya nearly died. Death didn't turn her evil. How naive could she be? This was incomprehensible. Although in the original story, she did eventually turn back. But that was only because she met someone she cared about deeply. It had to be said that this was completely unexpected for Hyūga. After all this time, Yorizuaya was betrayed, but it didn't immediately turn her evil. That would have made it impossible to guide her towards revenge. But after a moment's deliberation, he came up with a series of solutions. Yorizuaya's current status was uncertain. How many people in Sunagakure still remembered her well? It was unlikely to be the majority. After all, Raza had previously led many villagers to criticize Yorizuaya, attempting to recreate the fate of Konoha's White Fang. Unfortunately, Yorizuaya maintained a positive attitude, and didn't fall prey to the trolls. Still, His words had certainly helped him in his efforts. With just a little guidance, she could be completely swayed in his favor. Imagine, even in this precarious situation, the villagers still wished her dead, even lamenting God's mercy. Would that also turn Yakira, who had dedicated his life to the village, into a darker side? Thinking of this, Hyūga Teru immediately set about making preparations. That's when the spies planted in Tsunagakure came in handy. After gathering the key personnel and gaining a general understanding of the situation, Hyūga Teru knew the plan was feasible. It was obvious that Yakira, with her life in jeopardy, could still return to Tsunagakure. Whether the truth was exposed or not was irrelevant. Given Raz's treacherous nature, he was undoubtedly acting on the basis of his already exposed mindset. After all, he had a strong desire for power. Without a more stable plan, how could he maintain control of the village? Consequently, the Tsunagakure village was now almost one-sided, with Yakira being the target of all criticism. After all, so many Kurigakure ninjas had perished, and Tsunagakure needed an explanation. Shifting the blame to Yakira was clearly a very effective strategy. And it would only make the villagers loathe her even more. Hyūga Teru was eager to see how Yakira would react after she secretly returned to Sand Village. On the streets of Sand Village, as if they had encountered something infuriating, everyone was filled with rage, their faces grim. Did you hear? Yakira suddenly attacked the Kurigakure ninja who had been planning to cooperate with us, and then defected after being discovered. How despicable. Not only does she have a bad temper, but she's also bringing trouble to the village. Her tough stance on foreign affairs was evident earlier, and now she's causing great harm to the village. She shouldn't have been a jonin in the village. How could someone so impulsive be sent to negotiate a partnership with Kurigakure? What on earth are the higher-ups thinking? The higher-ups must have their own grievances, but they didn't expect her to act so recklessly. She has absolutely no sense of the bigger picture. In the tavern, every customer was criticizing Yakira. Their words betrayed disappointment, resentment, and sighs towards Yakira. Some drunken patrons, uttering curses at Yakira like madmen, became the tavern's entertainment. Not only did the others join in the curses, but the entire room cheered at the words, so vicious they made their scalps tingle. The atmosphere intensified, until it became a point where Yakira would be devoured alive if you were to enter the tavern. This made the woman, sitting in a secluded corner, wrapped up tightly in her clothes, claw at the table with her fingers, making sharp, piercing sounds. You might get executed if you come back now, Hyūga Teru said calmly, drinking and eating beans as if nothing else. Yakira paused, then grabbed the wine on the table and guzzled it. She was still happy to be back in the Sand Village. But not only were people on the street muttering about her, but inside the tavern, a massive attack was being waged against her. How could she not be heartbroken? She had almost died, hadn't she? Clearly, her trust in the village hadn't withstood the test. Yukang didn't respond to Hyūga Teru, but just kept drinking. He had been in the tavern for a long time, as if he wanted to drink himself to death here. However, after she completely fainted, Hyūga Teru carried him to a luxurious hotel outside the village. But he didn't expect her to be so persistent and directly dragged Hyūga Teru to the bed. Yukang seemed to have awakened some ability, and his blood and courage were extremely astonishing. In his confused state, he played a game of infighting with Hyūga Teru. The next morning, after a busy night, Hyūga Teru did not collapse on the bed. After all, his physical fitness was there. Not only did he get up early, but he also took good care of the others before returning to the hotel. But when he just came back, Yukang was almost sobbing alone in the room. When she saw her, she was a little flustered and tried to hide the fact that she had been crying. Before Hyūga Teru could ask, Yukang complained like a little woman. "Where did you go this morning? I thought you left me behind." Yukang, seemingly deeply wronged, complained for a moment before limply trying to get dressed, but found himself too weak to stand. This startled her. It hurts, am I paralyzed? How can this be more tiring than fighting? Seeing Yukang's delicate brows furrowed in surprise at her physical condition, Hyūga felt a little embarrassed. It was mainly because Yukang was so beautiful last night that she had forgotten her limits and forgot to hold back. Furthermore, in her drunken state, she seemed like a completely different person, letting loose in everything she did. This only fueled Hyūga's drive. Seeing Yukang in such pain, Hyūga couldn't help but feel apologetic. After all, last night was Yukang's first time. "I'm so sorry. I drank a little last night, so I couldn't control myself." Let me get you some treatment, it'll make you feel much better. Yukang was astonished. Is it still possible to treat it? Why didn't you do it to me earlier? It made me unable to use any strength. I thought you were done with me and left immediately. Ahem. So you are crying because of this? To be honest, you helped me a lot before. There is naturally no reason for me to abandon you. After hearing what Hinata said, Yukang thought for a while and said in surprise. The contact you mentioned with the Raikage's secretary, was it a normal contact? Was it also contact in the bed? Hinata was a little surprised at the woman's quick thinking, but she didn't intend to deny it. She said very straightforwardly. You are right. So do you regret it now? It's too late to regret it now. After all, we have done everything we should and shouldn't do. Chapter 118 Big White Worm. A ray of sky blue chakra illuminated, and Yukang felt her body recover at an incredibly fast pace, even her skin seeming to regain its softness. But she wasn't satisfied with this. Instead, she seized the opportunity to vent her frustration. Who do you think I am? Do you really think I can just let you have your way just because I'm drunk? If I didn't really want someone to rely on, I wouldn't let you get away with it. You really don't know how to care for me. I'm regretting my decision last night. This embarrassed Hyūga Teru, but also somewhat comforted. After all, Yukang wasn't the type to act on impulse and then completely disregard someone afterwards. Ahem, I thought you were crying just now, and that was largely because you had sex with me. Guess I overthought it. In that case, please take good care of me from now on. However, Yukang said, seemingly dissatisfied. What were you doing this morning? Why did you just come back now? Hyūga Teru was surprised by how quickly she had settled into the role of girlfriend. But after all, he had seen a lot of things, and he could handle such things naturally. Because there are many fragile women like you who need my care. Of course, I'll take care of them and make breakfast while I'm at it. With this, Hyūga Teru produced a scroll. Under Yukang's skeptical gaze, he performed a summoning technique. Several clay pots instantly appeared before Yukang's eyes. Seeing the same clay pots from yesterday's breakfast, Yukang's resentful expression finally softened. I thought you were just enjoying yourself, but I didn't expect you to even make breakfast. Yukang held a clay pot in front of her. By this time, her body had healed considerably, her blocked acupoints unblocked, and she could barely sit in a cross-legged position. Did you really make all that noodles today? Yukang ate her noodles hurriedly, tucking into her own pot while keeping an eye on the other one, as if afraid someone would snatch it from her. Hyūga Teru then reached over, his hands still radiating azure chakra, and reached into her pajamas. Eat slowly. No one's competing with you. If you want, I'll make it for you every day. Suddenly, a pair of hands slipped under her clothes, and Yukang felt it immediately, her body tensing up. After all, she was awake, and still eating noodles. Was it now? Remembering how limp she'd been last night, her face flushed. What are you doing? I'm having breakfast. Can't you come back later? Hyūga Teru knew he'd been misunderstood, but his hands continued to roam over her. Nothing, just simple treatment. Don't you feel better? Only then did Yukang cast aside his shyness and focus on his body. A moment's reflection revealed that his body was indeed recovering at an incredibly rapid pace. While a little surprised that Hyūga Teru could treat her with his hands apart, touching her like this, wasn't it proper? Then, be gentle, I want to have a quiet breakfast. Hyūga Teru couldn't help but lean closer to her back, taking in a deep breath of her scent. I'll feed you breakfast later, that's fine. After all, there are still many places where you can't endure treatment. Yukang's body softened, and he began to complain. Can't you wait until I finish eating, before you start treatment? Are you in a hurry, or are you trying to get back at me? Yukang felt as if a kunai was thrust against her back. Not only did she not dare to move, but her body tensed involuntarily. Hyūga Teru leaned in close to her earlobe and breathed a warm breath. It's not that you're trying to get back at me, but we're really in a hurry. I'm taking you to bully someone today, so you better hurry. Bully someone? Who? Yukang turned around, staring at Hyūga Teru in confusion. Of course, it's the person who bullied you. So, do you want to rely on yourself, or do you want me to help you vent your anger? After all, as my woman, you can't not retaliate when you're wronged. Hearing Hyūga Teru's serious words, Yukang was puzzled. That's a whole village, and they all want me dead. Even with your might, can you help me kill them all? Everyone has their limits, right? Faced with a question, Hyūga Teru didn't flinch, his hand slowly lowering. Do you think I'm ordinary? Human limits don't exist for me. You should be well aware of that, right? The Senju sage's strength was so immense that even Uchiha Madara couldn't withstand it, let alone a relatively weak woman like Yukang. Feeling Hyūga Teru's restless hand, Yukang's body tense up, recalling the terror of being dominated last night. Okay, I promise. But if things aren't going well, your pet can still lead us away, right? Thinking of the yellow-skinned rat that knew the Flying Thunder God Jutsu, Yukang calmed his nerves a little. With the element of surprise in the power of the Flying Thunder God Jutsu, if he decided to escape, no one would be able to stop him. Although she was worried about the Sand Village's overwhelming numbers, she knew full well they had no means to counter the Flying Thunder God Jutsu. Still, being underestimated, Hyūga Teru didn't fret. After all, she'd never revealed her true strength, so suspicion was only natural. So, she went along with Yukang's suggestion. Alright, I'll take Ikari with you when the time comes. Your safety must be guaranteed. He spoke as if his own safety wasn't necessary, and Yukang was tempted to remind her again. But sensing a bit of machismo from Chidori Hyūga Teru, she let go. After her body had recovered, Hyūga Teru handed her something resembling a giant white worm. Eat it, it will boost your strength. The giant white worm wasn't a physical entity that exploded when bitten, but rather a form of earth blade condensed from Hyūga Teru's chakra essence. This was the same valuable item he'd given Fugaku before, helping him mitigate the side effects of his main Gekyo technique. This earth blade also contained Uzumaki bloodline, but it was actually somewhat different from Fugaku's, as it used Naruto's genes. Naruto's Uzumaki bloodline was not actually inherited perfectly. And Yukang's is the gene of the Uzumaki girl named Hinoka, whom he met on the Beast Summoning Island a few days ago. Although she does not have the ability to heal others by being bitten like Karin. But compared to Naruto, she has many more Uzumaki talents. For example, the Diamond Lock, Kagura's Heart Eye, and huge chakra. The chakra is even more than Naruto. This is why Hyūga Teru plans to give it to Yukang. Looking at the big white worm handed over, Yukang's face was disgusted and resistant. Such a big worm. Don't you have any quirks? I'm still eating, can't you let me finish it? Chapter 119 Scorpion Maid. This isn't some bad taste, but a real benefit. Maybe after swallowing one, you'll crave a second. Hyūga swung the flexible white worm in his hand, as if tossing something tempting like money. Yukang, still unsure of the benefits, looked skeptical. But Hyūga didn't give her a chance to react. He pinched her lips and shoved the giant white worm in. Yukang's eyes widened, but Hyūga's grip was so strong and so fast that she had no chance to spit it out. Ugh, cough cough cough, spit? I can't spit it out anymore. Yukang's face turned an ugly green, as if she'd just had a slap on her face. Tears streamed down her beautiful eyes, but suddenly the disgust on her face froze, giving way to a hint of disbelief. How is it? Doesn't it feel good? You know, very few people get to eat this. Those who have tried it want more. Although still a little uneasy, she actually swallowed the giant white worm. But the overwhelming warmth and comfort that permeated her body slowly made Yukang forget the nightmare. She even wanted to eat a few more noodles, just as Hyūga Teru had suggested, to savor the feeling. Yukang said nothing, but her expression, which had changed dramatically, betrayed her inner thoughts. For a long moment, she stopped eating her noodles and stared at Hyūga Teru in confusion. I feel like my chakra has increased a lot. What on earth could this be, and how could it have such an astonishing effect? Yukang was deeply shocked and desperate to know the reason. After all, this completely overturned her understanding. Hyūga Teru didn't intend to hide it. After all, since they were one of her own, there was no need to conceal anything. I simply added the power of everyone else's bloodline to you. It's the Uzumaki bloodline I worked so hard to find, but besides the chakra increase, aren't there any other changes? Yukang was puzzled. Other changes? What changes? I can't feel them at the moment, but your mental state is exceptionally good. Does that count? The fact that you could inherit 50% of the Uzumaki bloodline's power didn't seem too exaggerated. There was no such thing as a diamond lock or Kagura's heart. But that wasn't a big deal. After all, Hyūga Teru didn't need Yukang's help to conquer the world. As long as she could protect herself, she was more than capable. Hyūga Teru couldn't help but smile at her. It's already good enough, actually. You should have more stamina in the future. I don't want to ask for too much from you. Having enough stamina is more than enough, Hyūga Teru's smile was a bit lewd. Hokage was stunned for a moment before reacting. Asshole, you weren't planning this from the beginning, were you? Hyūga moved behind her, hugging her lithe waist from behind. How could that be? This is clearly a mutually beneficial situation. How can you call it a shady idea? Speaking of which, you should eat your noodles quickly, or they'll clump. However, Hokage's previous desire for noodles was replaced by a hint of shyness. Do you still have that white worm? Can it pass on the Uzumaki bloodline to me, and other bloodlines as well? Hyūga Teru smiled, touching her belly. It's possible, but the whirlpools are already enough. If you need more, you'd better let your belly inherit it. I'm telling you in secret, I have 6 bloodlines, so my offspring can inherit a lot of abilities. 6 bloodlines? Hokage was stunned. How did you manage to have so many bloodlines? Are you a monster? What's the difference? Hyūga Teru couldn't help but sullenly. Calling something you don't understand a monster is too much? Speaking of which, haven't you seen my body before? Is there anything different from others? Hokage was suddenly confused. After thinking about it, she really couldn't come up with anything. It seemed that her physical strength was extraordinary, even more powerful than an old ox plowing the fields. But wouldn't this special thing only be used for bad things? Hokage was confused. She spent the morning of the second day after becoming Hyūga Teru's woman. Around noon, in the empty elder's residence in Tsunagakure, Ebizo and Chiyo were enjoying a simple lunch. The silence lasted until the last grain of rice in his bowl was finished, and then Ebizo spoke slowly. Sister, isn't that Raza's behavior too extreme? Chiyo raised a slightly tired brow, tilting her head in thought for a moment. While it's certainly a bit excessive, he's sacrificed so much for the village, so it's only natural that he should eliminate the opponents who hinder him, Ebizo lamented. The village already has few capable personnel, and yet they're fighting among themselves like this. I hope his son can bring us a surprise. The sound of palms clapping echoed in the rest room. Normally, the guards outside the door would have stepped in at this time and removed the dishes and trays from the two. But the door slowly opened, revealing a young man in a maid's outfit with red hair. His handsome face was slightly downcast, as if shrouded in endless shadows, unfit for public view. His expressionless, yet motionless face, combined with his strange attire, immediately alerted Ebizo and Chiyo to something amiss. However, the moment they laid eyes on him, Ebizo and Chiyo were stunned. Scorpion, what's up? Why are you here? Did that guy let you back? Despite the bizarre situation, Chiyo couldn't help but tremble with excitement. Ebizo, more reasonable, suppressed his surprise and frowned. Sister, Scorpion might not have returned as he wished. It must have been that person who sent him back. He probably wants something from us. Scorpion slowly raised his face, a slightly wicked smile on his face. Uncle, you're as rational as ever. That guy sent me here, asking me to convince you two to help Yakira stabilize his leadership of the Sand Village. So, are you going to help or not? You should know that person's strength. I think it's best for you not to resist stubbornly. Chiyo and Ebizo were utterly baffled by Scorpion's words. Not only to help Hokage lead the entire Sand Village, but also because Scorpion seems to have completely changed, no longer as rebellious as before. And this maid outfit on his body, although it can't be said to be completely suitable. But Scorpion is already handsome, so it still looks good on him. But even if it looks good, it can't make Scorpion want to wear a maid outfit, right? Although many years have passed, Chiyo still doesn't think that Scorpion, who has always been indifferent, will suddenly like to wear a maid outfit. If this day really comes, it must be because he is forced. So why does Scorpion obey Hyūga Teru's will so much? Is that guy a pervert, and he specifically forced his grandson to wear this outfit? Chapter 120 Scorpion's New Puppet. Just as Chiyo was puzzled, Ebizo questioned again. Scorpion, so you've completely obeyed that man. You said you wanted us to help Yakira control Tsunagakure. Was it because that man also subjugated Yakira, or was there some other reason? Ebizo's series of questions perfectly matched Ebizo's thoughts and the village's needs. But Chiyo was a little annoyed. Don't ask about the village all the time. Scorpion has finally come back. Don't you want to know why he's wearing that outfit? Speaking of which, this matter is much more important than some trivial village matter, okay? Although somewhat speechless at Chiyo's focus, Ebizo did choose to ignore the question. However, under Chiyo's insistence, he was forced to start looking closely at Scorpion. Admittedly, if Scorpion were a girl, this outfit would really suit her. Cute, youthful, and slender, All the beautiful words you could describe a girl, Scorpion seemed to possess them all. Ahem. There were some issues, but not major ones. No man would resolutely choose to dress like that. Sister, Scorpion isn't too concerned about this, and he's asking about business. Maybe we shouldn't keep him waiting too long. Chiyo immediately became anxious upon hearing this. How is this not business? It's bad enough that you didn't care about Scorpion before, but now that he's finally back, you're ignoring him. You're driving me crazy. Just as Ebizo was about to choke, Scorpion spoke up. Alright, old woman, your uncle is right. I did come to discuss business with you, and you haven't reached an agreement. If you don't agree, I'll have to resort to force. Scorpion's tone grew colder, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. This made Chiyo and Ebizo's faces grim. Chiyo, still a little unwilling, spoke again with worry. Scorpion, listen to Grandma and come back. That guy is just one person. With so many people in the village, he wouldn't dare to do anything. Ebizo shook his head in surprise. Sister, that guy's incredibly powerful. Even if the villagers are numerous, they won't be any use against that rat with the flying thunder god jutsu, right? Trying to keep Scorpion here isn't a good idea. It might even bring trouble to the village. The moment Ebizo finished speaking, Chiyo glared at him with murderous intent. What's wrong with you, man? Can't you just stand with me? Seeing Chiyo's threatening outburst, Ebizo felt a little intimidated. But for the sake of the village, he had to say this. After all, offending Scorpion wouldn't kill him, but offending that terrifying guy, he'd probably have trouble sleeping at night. But he didn't have to worry for long. Scorpion spoke again, agreeing. Uncle is right, but you'd better not leave any hope in the world. That guy's strength is beyond your imagination. I saw it with my own eyes. With a single strike, he easily tore a massive gap over 3,000 kilometers deep in the ocean. If he wanted to, the village would be wiped out in a moment. This was what Hyūga Teru did after acquiring the 1,000-hand sage body, as a test and with Scorpion's guidance. Once upon a time, breaching the ocean required the assistance of the tailed beasts, but now Hyūga Teru can easily do so on his own. Furthermore, each strike only consumes 1% of his chakra. Theoretically, he could perform 100 golden wheel reincarnation explosions in a single day. But even just one was enough to make Scorpion tremble with fear. He also learned a lesson from Hyūga Teru. Eternity and the like are mere art. In the face of absolute strength, they are annihilated. This is why he completely submits to Hyūga Teru. After hearing what Scorpion said, Chiyo and Ebizo's expressions kept changing. Their brows furrowed into knots as they looked at each other in bewilderment. They clearly couldn't believe it, nor did they want to believe it could be true. If he were truly that powerful, none of the 5 great ones would be his match. If such a person were ambitious, he might cause great suffering to the world. But their biggest feeling was, how could this be possible? Seeing that the two of them didn't react, Scorpion immediately shook her head and pulled out a scroll from under her skirt. I'm running out of patience. Since you don't believe me, and it's difficult to reach an agreement right away, I'll have to resort to force. Chiyo was about to stop them and play the emotional card, but with a bang, white smoke curled up, and an astonishing amount of chakra immediately filled the entire retreat room. Wow, such a strong chakra reaction. What kind of puppet is this? It looks pretty good. How come Scorpion has made his puppets like this now, dressed in a dancer's attire? The puppet, graceful yet radiating a terrifying aura, looked like a fairy descended from the heavens, sacred and inviolable, yet incredibly mysterious. Ebizo and Chiyo were stunned. I won't waste any more nonsense. This puppet of mine is made from a vast collection of precious materials, storing the chakra of the 9-tailed beasts. If you insist on resisting like this, I can even use it to activate the tailed beast ball. I wonder if you can stop it now. Scorpion was still quite excited. He had suddenly acquired living material that had absorbed the chakra of the 9-tailed beast some time ago. After years of tireless research, he not only created the puppet, but also mastered the release of the tailed beast ball. But what excited him most right now was the chance to test it out. What, can it even release the tailed beast balls? How is that even possible? Scorpion, you're kid, are you kidding me? How can the tailed beast balls be controlled by a puppet? Wait, is this a Jinchuriki's human puppet? Hearing Chiyo's words, Ebizo couldn't help but wonder. Sister, Scorpion just said you were gathering the chakra of the 9-tailed beasts. That's more than a mere Jinchuriki can do, let alone a human puppet. Chiyo calmed down, but her doubts only grew. If it's not a human puppet, what else could it be? Besides human puppets, I've never seen a puppet that retains the abilities of someone else in life. This, Ibizo choked. Scorpion shook his head and immediately took control of the puppet. If you keep dithering, nothing but death awaits you. Although he had been ordered not to kill Chiao and Ibizo, in order to better test the puppet's effectiveness, he had to make a harsh remark to get them to take it seriously. Clearly, Chiao and Ibizo wouldn't readily believe Scorpion's one-sided story. They immediately drew scrolls and cast a summoning spell. 10 puppets clad in white capes quickly formed a protective presence before Chiao, their presence imposing. On Ibizo's side, a single Third Raikage puppet, its hands extended with gleaming silver blades, also imposing. Chapter 121 The Power of the Dancer. Seeing the puppets, Scorpion couldn't help but shake his head. The most impressive ones right now are still the Chikamatsu Tenshu and my human puppets. They haven't improved at all. You have no chance against me, who is now several times more powerful. It's best to surrender now. Although Chiao and Ibizo's faces were grim, Chiao still spoke with hope. Don't be too careless. Although your grandmother and your uncle are old, they are not too weak. If they want to defeat us, they will inevitably be injured or even killed. It's best to stop now, or it will be too late to regret. However, Scorpion didn't waver. I think you are the ones who can't see the situation clearly. There's no point in talking anymore. Let's see my perfect creation first. With that, the dancing puppet, resembling a fairy, suddenly sprouted 7 pairs of emerald green wings. As it floated in the air, its red lips parted. Although the movement was very gentle, the air around it was violently turbulent. Waves of air converged frantically around the dancer, only to condense into a humming air bomb in front of her mouth. Wind style. Air training. A massive ball of wind suddenly launched, sweeping up the bricks and stones on the ground. In the blink of an eye, the air bomb seemed to transform into a giant bomb of sand and gravel, attempting to engulf Chiao and Ibizo. This seems to be the power of the one tail. How is this possible? Chiao's pupils suddenly constricted, her face filled with disbelief. Ibizo was also surprised, but his movements were not slowed at all. Magnetic style. Sand iron wall, pitch black sand and gravel suddenly burst from the mouth of the Third Raikage puppet, quickly forming a black wall in front of Chiao and him. Boom. The wind bomb slammed into the black wall, but its power was not completely blocked. As if struggling against the wall, the wind bomb continued to attack the black wall, resisting, trying to blast it apart. Scorpion, observing this scene with ease, was not surprised at all. He immediately activated the dancer again, using the power of the two-tail. Fire style. Fireball. Blazing flames shot out instantly, catching up with the wind bullet still struggling against the horizontal magnetic style, causing the two to instantly entangle. Like hay on a prairie, the wind bullet was instantly engulfed by the flames, suddenly expanding several times its original size. The immense impact of the blazing flames instantly melted the black wall like a rag, then burst through. Magnetic style. Iron sand rectangle. In a moment of desperation, Ibizo condensed the iron sand into a thick rectangle, blocking the terrifying flames. However, upon contact with the flames, the entire rectangle instantly turned a fiery red. While it blocked the flames' attack, it was still inches away from breaking through and completely engulfing the two. If I remember correctly, that huge fireball was so powerful, it seemed like a trick from the Two Tails. Ibizo's face was utterly grim. His defenses had nearly been breached twice. If he'd truly used the tailed beast ball, they would have been annihilated in an instant. If the area weren't so small, I'd actually have wanted to use it directly, but it was just a few random attacks, and you were already having a hard time resisting them. Do you want to keep going? Scorpion folded his arms and demanded again, coldly. Seeing Chiao and Ibizo remain silent for a long time, he immediately controlled the dancer. A red, transparent coat of tailed beast chakra enveloped her, transforming her into bloodthirsty Shura. Seeing this, Chiao was dumbfounded. To even transform into a tailed beast. Could he really use the tailed beast ball? Sister, the tailed beast ball is impossible. He's clearly worried. You should come and help. I can't do it alone. Ibizo was terribly worried. From what he knew of Chiao, he knew she was hesitant to attack, most likely because she didn't want to fight. Well, no matter what, Scorpion won't stop attacking us. Sitting there and waiting for death is definitely not an option. Chiao knew the dire situation, but since Scorpion still harbored the desire to persuade them to help, it meant they could convince Scorpion. However, Scorpion's puppets had all transformed into tailed beasts. Ebizo couldn't stop them alone. Forget about refusing to help, and even if they did convince Scorpion, they would be defeated in return. How could they still convince him? This was the time to demonstrate their dominance. The moment they agreed to attack, all 10 puppets charged, swiftly hurtling towards Scorpion like a ray of light. But the dancer, still in tailed beast form, increased the vibration frequency of her slightly reddish wings several times in midair, releasing a shower of pale green scale powder. Secret technique. Scale powder concealment technique. The scale powder instantly filled the entire space, severely obstructing vision and slowing the movements of Chihiyo's puppets. Suddenly, a red figure appeared behind the Chikamatsu 10, wings suddenly spreading wide. Insect bite, wings suddenly sharpened, shooting out like arrows, shattering the 7 puppets to smithereens in the blink of an eye. But at that moment, a sudden crackling sound, like wooden joints, emanated from the dancer's sides. For a moment, as the dancer was surrounded, several spherical projectiles flew out, exploding in balls of blazing flame. Then, a puppet wielding enormous twin-blade sword from below, spinning rapidly in the air into a silver wheel before striking the dancer. Zzz! Like a shear cutting through steel, the wheel slashed from the dancer's head to the ground below, sending forth countless dazzling sparks. After these attacks, the scales around her dispersed. Chihiyo, who had been smirking, suddenly lost her smile. How? How is it possible? Such an attack. How could it remain unscathed? Seeing the dancer, still intact and soaring in the sky, Chihiyo's worldview was profoundly shaken. Ebizo was also extremely surprised. After staring at her for a moment, he offered a soothing reassurance. Sister, it might be the tailed beast coat, combined with other means, that's protecting it. Let's unite our forces. We've already lost 7 puppets. Our situation is dire. If we don't combine our strength, we'll have no chance. Although Chihiyo was somewhat surprised, she had seen enough to endure the storm and wasn't so easily discouraged. Okay, I'll create an opportunity for you. When you're ready, use magnetic release to inflict a heavy blow. Understood? The two of them were several times more serious than before. Scorpion, however, didn't seem to notice anything amiss. Instead, his smile grew even brighter. Fight hard, try your best to please me. Whatever you use, I'll be there. While your puppets are certainly powerful, you'll suffer greatly if you underestimate us. Ebizo rebuked him harshly. The puppet he was controlling, the third Kazakage, suddenly clasped its hands together. Magnetic release. Sand iron wings, a vast mass of black wings instantly gathered around the third Kazakage puppet. After reaching an extremely dense mass, they suddenly shot out, slicing through the air with a sharp whistle as they pierced the scorpion dancer. Chapter 122, Absolute Strength. Swish, swish, swish. Black wings pierced the dancer, but she remained motionless, seemingly unaffected. Such arrogance will cost you dearly. Scorpion's lack of resistance intensified the coldness in Ebizo's eyes, and he sped up his puppet manipulation. Magnetic release, iron sand field technique. Black iron sand suddenly rose up from all sides of the dancer, extending into a complex network of black pillars along with the iron sand on her body. This reduced the dancer's range of movement in the air to a minimum. Seeing this, Ebizo immediately signaled Chihiyo, signaling her to attack Scorpion immediately, leaving the dancer's puppet in his care. Chihiyo didn't hesitate. There was no reason to miss such a golden opportunity. After all, the puppeteer was the foundation of the puppet. With a puppeteer eliminated, the puppets would be no more of a concern. Chihiyo immediately controlled the remaining 3 puppets, rapidly approaching Scorpion, her eyes sharp. Scorpion, stop, you don't stand a chance. Scorpion couldn't help but laugh. Stop? I see you still haven't grasped the situation. Stopping is pointless. Do you really think my perfect puppet is capable of this? Ebizo could see without Scorpion's reminder that Scorpion's puppet wasn't seriously damaged. But he hadn't exhausted all his techniques. If the dancer's puppet, now restrained, were hit by his strongest attack, it could be completely destroyed. Who didn't grasp the situation? Let's wait and see what happens next, Ebizo shouted, and the third Kazakage puppet suddenly soared into the air, soaring above the dancer, condensing into a massive black triangular pyramid. Magnetic release, sand iron gyro. The pyramid spun at an extremely fast speed, like a helicopter propeller, creating a massive air wave and forming a hurricane that surrounded the dancer. If such a powerful attack could land, it would be a disaster. Ebizo, with immense confidence, crushed the dancer into smithereens in an instant. Meanwhile, Chiao's puppets also reached Scorpion, the three forming a horn-like formation and attacking. Strangely, Scorpion merely raised a hand. Magnetic release. Sand iron rain. Countless tiny black needles rose into the air, instantly darting towards the three puppets. Caught off guard, the three puppets were covered in tightly adhering black spots, which grew at a visible speed, covering their entire bodies. How? How could this be possible? How could you even use magnetic release? This is impossible, Chiao exclaimed in astonishment. She tried to get the last puppet to dodge the magnetic attack, but no matter how she used the chakra threads, the puppets were unable to react. Like a rusted machine, it kept stalling, its body moving clumsily. I don't think I can do it here. I can only rely on you, don't worry, sister. Even if his puppets can use magnetic escape, they can't stop it. The third Kazakage puppet had already closed in, inches from the dancer. At such close range, even using magnetic escape wouldn't be enough to stop the sand iron top. The dancer's crushing into pieces was inevitable. But after the sand iron top pierced the dancer, she suddenly dove downwards like soap, leaving only a swirling mass of white liquid in her place. Following closely behind, the large amount of sand iron condensed by the third Kazakage puppet melted into the white liquid at an extremely fast speed. At such a close distance, even if he could control the third Kazakage's puppet to launch, it would be too late. What's going on? What the hell is this? How can it possibly dissolve magnetic escape techniques? Look at the color. Could it be dissolving escape techniques? That puppet can even use dissolving escape techniques. Seeing Ebizo exclaim in disbelief, Scorpion patiently explained, seemingly unfazed. I've already told you, my puppets combine the power of the nine-tailed beasts, but you can also speculate further about my magnetic escape techniques. Do I possess other escape techniques myself? Upon hearing Scorpion's words, the third Kazakage's puppet had largely corroded. Even though some of its body had been promptly disintegrated, it couldn't resist the inertia and plunged heavily into the white liquid. The crackling sound of corrosion echoed throughout the quiet room. Chiao and Ebizo, whose puppets had been nearly completely destroyed, looked utterly solemn. In desperation, they even took up the weapons from the shattered puppets in a final stand. Even without your puppets, you're still trying to resist. How ridiculous. My puppets possess the power of the nine-tailed beasts, but you should know who gave them to me, right? It's already so difficult to deal with me, and you still plan to continue resisting? Chiao and Ebizo's faces were filled with bitterness. They knew how difficult Hyūga Teru was. They couldn't handle Pikachu alone, let alone Hyūga Teru himself. Scorpion, with his terrifying power, siding with Hyūga Teru was simply forcing them to their deaths. This was actually why Chiao was reluctant to fight Scorpion. She knew Scorpion was powerful, but if they could win him over, their disadvantage would not be so great. But all this was wishful thinking. Compromise was impossible, even if Chiao cared about Scorpion. Compromise would mean the village would have to change its name. This was far more serious than simply letting her grandson run away with someone else. She pretended to care deeply for Scorpion, but in her heart, she would never betray the village. After all, the village was his last resort. Though the solace was pitifully small, it was still something. After all, his grandson couldn't come back, the village couldn't be lost again. Some things, Scorpion, you absolutely can't give in. No matter what you say, it's useless, Ebizo reaffirmed his stance. Chiao sighed in grief. Your uncle is right. As an outsider, we can't possibly agree to your attempt to seize control of the village. Scorpion smiled faintly, unconcerned. Alright, if that's the case, I'll have to resort to force, Scorpion said, and he and the dancer took flight. Then, a wave of steam billowed from his fist. Boiling release. Unparalleled power, boom, boom. A tremendous explosion erupted the moment the powerful fist impacted the ground. Although Chiao and Ebizo dodged, countless rocks still pelted towards them. Seeing the boiling release, their expressions grew even more solemn. Suddenly, the chakra in Scorpion and Mayhem surged, as if suddenly becoming several times stronger. The wings on their backs also turned a dark red. They flew at breakneck speed, and both appeared behind them. Insect bite, the dark red wings suddenly stretched out, instantly binding Ebizo and Chiao. They continued to contract, causing their bones to creak and crackle, as if they were about to be strangled to death in an instant. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, It means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 123 Extraordinary Experience. Scorpion, are you really going to strangle us to death like this? Chiyo, her face crimson after being captured, looked at Scorpion with sorrow. Ebizo remained silent, though his face was also filled with sorrow. Losing to Scorpion was nothing, the new wave would eventually overtake the old wave, but to see the village destroyed in their hands. This wasn't just about losing face. Compared to Chiyo, Ebizo had a stronger sense of responsibility. Scorpion remained impassive. I wouldn't kill you, but I wanted to help that lord and convince you, but I don't seem to be very good at it. Now I can only restrain you, Ebizo said suddenly. If you still want us to help Yekira control the Tsunaga cure, forget it. We won't help you, Scorpion smiled indifferently. Don't be so sure about whether I'll help you or not. Honestly, I really hope you'll be more understanding. After all, compared to having the village reduced to rubble, simply letting it fall into the hands of a powerful force is already good enough, isn't it? Ebizo snorted stubbornly. Then the village will no longer be the same. It's just as good as being destroyed. Scorpion shook his head helplessly and took out a kunai. It's too difficult to convince you to tell me. You should talk to that master. A flash of white light passed by, and Hyūga Teru's figure immediately appeared before the two of them. Scorpion, you've done well. I will find a way to fuse the chakra of the nine-tailed beasts as soon as possible to make your puppet more perfect. Scorpion's puppet was already very powerful. After all, it could harness the power of each of the nine-tailed beasts separately. This was thanks to the research on the island of summoning beasts. It was just a little strange. It didn't seem like the chakra of the nine-tailed beasts was absorbed into the outer demonic path like that. When absorbed into the cultivated devouring worm, the chakra wasn't completely fused, but instead remained within the devouring worm in a way that was inherited separately. This so-called devouring worm is the larval form of the ultimate summoning beast. Having created one devouring worm once, the researchers on Summoning Beast Island were no strangers to creating another. However, after consuming the chakra of all nine-tailed beasts, the devouring worm was killed by Hyūga Teru, and Scorpion used it to create a puppet. Clearly, this devouring worm's self-healing ability wasn't as immortal as the Ten Tails. However, it was a passable puppet for Scorpion. After all, even Chiyo and Ebizo were completely helpless against this Scorpion. Scorpion would likely have a significant advantage against other cage-level warriors. In short, Scorpion's strength has already surpassed that of an ordinary cage. Upon hearing Hyūga Teru's promise, Scorpion's expression became slightly excited, and he quickly nodded in response. Thank you, sir. Please continue to speak to them. I guarantee they will find it difficult to break free. Hyūga Teru nodded. I trust your abilities, but are you two so stubborn that you think the village will fall into the hands of outsiders that you refuse to agree? Yes, sir, but if you force the villagers to submit, there shouldn't be any problem, right? Why do you have to get their help? Seeing Scorpion's doubts, Hyūga Teru didn't intend to hide it. It's really not a big deal. I have countless ways to let you control the entire village. However, if you want to control the village, it's not good to have powerful subordinates. And I also want to provide some help. With them around, various measures will be easier to implement. Of course, to prevent these two from making any small moves, you have to stay and help watch over them from now on. Scorpion couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed after hearing this. Chiyo's eyes flashed with surprise. In fact, Hyūga Teru did say that intentionally. But Ebizo seemed to see through it and immediately expressed his disdain. You'd better give up on this idea. A village without autonomy doesn't matter, but we won't agree to any of your demands. Seeing Ebizo's stubborn defiance, Hyūga Teru kindly offered solace. Old sir, please don't be so confident. I have no intention of taking control of your village. After all, it's poor and the environment is poor. I have the power to single-handedly conquer the 5 great nations. If I don't conquer Konoha and Kumagakure, wouldn't I be asking for trouble by coming to your impoverished land? And all this is purely because I want to please you, Kangira. Conspiracies and schemes have nothing to do with me, and I disdain them. Ebizo's face was filled with disbelief. Words are worthless. Even the peace treaty signed between the two countries is like a piece of waste paper. Do you think we'll believe your promises? After all, our Tsunagakure is a great ninja village. If it were truly in trouble, why would you keep Sasori around? Ebizo was indeed a wise man of Tsunagakure. But his vision was limited, and he could only see so much. Hyūga Teru actually considered using Kido Matsukami to control the major ninja villages. But it could be done without Kido Matsukami. Whether it was a public display of power or exposing the ninja world's great secrets, it could achieve the unification of the 5 great nations and world peace. Honestly, if it weren't for giving Yakira a truly beautiful sand village, he really wouldn't have bothered to talk to Ebizo. Faced with Ebizo's repeated refusal, Hyūga Teru understood why Sasori couldn't convince the 2 men. After all, they were elderly, with some deeply ingrained beliefs, making it understandable that persuasion was difficult. To convince them, it probably wouldn't be just talk, it would require tangible experience. Hyūga Teru smiled and placed a hand on Sasori's shoulder. Scorpion, keep holding them. I'll show them some things. After all, some things won't give up even if you just tell them. Sasori immediately used his wings to tighten his grip on Ebizo and Shio. Understood. Hyūga Teru then activated the Flying Thunder God technique. The men instantly vanished from the quiet room. The next moment, they appeared before the vast ocean. Shio and Ebizo stared at each other, their suspicions lingering, yet they couldn't believe such a thing. But Hyūga Teru didn't waste any time, immediately entering Tenseigan chakra mode and activating Susanoo. 1,000-meter tall giant rose from the ground, and then a golden lightsaber grasped in its vast hands. The tip of the sword lightly skimmed the surface of the sea, effortlessly creating a terrifying abyss. Ebizo and Shio's eyes nearly popped out in shock. Even after this, Hyūga Teru didn't stop. A black flame suddenly flew out, landing on the sea. Far from being extinguished, it burned even more fiercely, as if consuming the entire ocean. It was simply the eternal divine flame. Then, he coordinated with Scorpion to launch the tailed beast balls, repeatedly bombarding the 1,000-meter tall giant with them. Though the flames from the explosion surged like the sea, the battle-hardened giant remained unfazed, standing proudly on the surface. Chapter 124 The Rage of Sand Village. How is this possible? This can't be true. What kind of terrifying power is this? Not even the tailed beast ball can shake it in the slightest. Killing us would only require one finger, right? Shio and Ebizo's worldview completely collapsed, as if they were experiencing the world for the first time. Although no longer restrained by Scorpion, they didn't run. Instead, they fell to their knees. It was as if their legs were completely out of control and trembled. They had never imagined that such a terrifying being could exist in the world. If it wanted to crush their village, it would probably only take one blow. And they had just tried to stop it, not giving it the slightest bit of a friendly look. Ebizo, in particular, wanted to die. Just now, he'd been speculating about Hyūga Teru's faults, and not only had he guessed nothing. He was probably always seen as a clown by others. If Hyūga Teru had been a little more ruthless, he'd probably be wiped out. But now, thinking about this, he didn't know what to do. He probably wouldn't need much of Hyūga Teru's strength. He felt like he was taking himself too seriously. Brother, let's just give in to them, we can't win against them. While he believed the village's autonomy was important, that was something he could only insist on when there was still a glimmer of hope. Faced with such despairing power, he had to compromise, even if he hadn't wanted to. With a long sigh, Ebizo nodded. I see. I never thought a figure as powerful as the ninja god could reappear in this day and age. He's probably even more powerful than the ninja god, right? He'd easily destroy our village. Shio sighed, but her expression remained calm, her gaze fixed on Scorpion. She was actually more concerned that Scorpion could stay in the village. I don't know what Yakira really thinks of the village. Since this guy wants us to help Yakira control the village, Yakira shouldn't be completely on his side, right? However, Shio couldn't help but poke his head. Don't overthink it. It's best to be as simple as possible in front of someone with such great power. They're both willing to tolerate us both for a woman. I'm afraid their relationship is not ordinary. It's better to be honest, so as not to offend others. After Shio's reminder, Ebizo suddenly realized this and nodded repeatedly. I understand, sister, but what about Raza and the others? What should we do from now on? Shio shook her head. Let them be. What else can we do? Don't plead for them, or they might just disgust us. I understand. Ebizo's voice deepened, losing its sharpness, as if he had become an ordinary old man. It was still noon. Seeing the villagers' anger directed at the disappeared Yakira, As the instigator of all this, Raza was in a very good mood and had made many lunch arrangements. He even summoned the village's best sashimi chef to prepare the freshly caught bluefin tuna right beside him. A whole, incredibly expensive bluefin tuna, he would only indulge in when entertaining distinguished guests or on special occasions. This time, he had finally driven Yukang out of the village, completely ruining her reputation. For him, it was like a festive occasion, a time for celebration. Luoshak, you bastard, give me back my brother's life. Luoshak, you bastard, you murdered my uncle. You're not human, Luoshak, you beast. My grandfather was so old. And you didn't even spare his life? You're so cruel. Suddenly, a series of angry shouts erupted outside, causing Luoshak to freeze just as he was about to take a bite of the sashimi. The sudden roar of anger was so surreal that his gaze drifted to the sashimi chef nearby. Did you hear that noise? The sashimi chef shuddered, quickly lowering his head and whispering. Well, it seems someone's scolding you. Raza was stunned for a moment, then a fierce glint flashed in his eyes. Who is so bold as to slander me in front of the village? Someone, bang. A loud bang suddenly erupted from the doorway. Although someone outside responded to Raza's call, the door didn't just open, it completely detached from its position, bursting into the entire office. A large amount of smoke and dust rained down from the ceiling as the door detached. A crack appeared in the ceiling, extending from the door, as if a little more pressure would completely rupture. When the smoke and dust settled to the ground, allowing for some visibility, he saw that standing at the doorway was not the guards Raza had hoped to call out to, but a group of heavily armed, angry ninjas. Raza noticed that among them were ninjas wearing Jonin insignia, many even holding considerable influence within the village. But these men came with such force and fury, as if they were determined to tear Raza to pieces. This infuriated Raza immensely. What on earth do you people want to do? Are you planning a rebellion? Hearing Raza's cold question, instead of retreating, everyone's rage only intensified. Luoshak, you bastard, stop pretending. My brother trusted and revered you so much, yet you sent someone to kill him just to prevent him from leaking secrets. You're worse than pigs and dogs, Luoshak. What the hell were you thinking, you beast? My uncle has done nothing but hard work for the village, and you sold him out to assassins from an enemy country? Do you think he's a hindrance to your becoming Kazakage? Luoshak is such a jerk. My grandfather was so old, and he simply blocked some of your policies, yet you sent someone to assassinate him. I don't understand how powerful the village has become under your policies. You don't even spare the elderly. Facing one familiar yet unfamiliar face after another, Luoshak felt a sense of uncertainty for the first time. Although his image in the village wasn't particularly friendly, he had never had a negative image before. Who had exposed all this, and why hadn't he noticed anything at all? Luoshak took several steps back, unsure how to respond. He had indeed done many shady things to secure the position of Kazakage and consolidate his power. He seemed to have done all the things he was being questioned about, but also seemed not to have done them. However, as soon as he leaned against the window, he heard a lot of noise outside, and they were all shouting his name. He could faintly hear voices cursing him. He glanced out the window and saw that people were coming to the Fengying building from house to house. The basement of the building was already full of people. This made him feel even more strange. Wasn't the anger of the village directed at Yukang? Why didn't anyone curse Yukang? Instead, they all came to curse him? Who was targeting him? Chapter 125. Luoshak is imprisoned. But no matter who was targeting him, he was now the target of public criticism. If he didn't react appropriately, the situation would only worsen. I don't know who instigated you, but if you dare slander me again, I'll have the Anbu throw you all behind bars. Raza's tone was icy, his expression sinister, his aura growing increasingly terrifying. He radiated a terrifying aura, and with a wave of his hand, golden sand streamed from his body, condensing into fine, sharp needles. What are you trying to do? Are you going to attack the villagers again? Raza, stop now. If you stop now, we can still get you a lighter sentence. Otherwise, we'll have to kill you. Two elderly men suddenly emerged from the crowd, their gazes defying negotiation. Raza was bewildered. When he'd been slandering Yukang, these two hadn't reacted at all, seeming to acquiesce in his actions. Now that he'd been slandered, they were going to personally take care of him? Seeing Chiyo and Ebizo appear, he couldn't comprehend the situation, and his anger was boiling. Why are you two old men here questioning me instead of staying in the rest room? Do you still think I'm the Kazakage of this village? Raza's roar failed to calm them. Instead, it only made Chihayo and Ebizo stand more resolutely before the crowd, staring directly at Raza. The village is full of voices opposing you. Do you think you can still hold the position of Kazakage? We're not only here to arrest you, but also to revoke your title as Kazakage. Raza was stunned by the two men's blunt statement. However, noticing the people gathered at the door, their eyes blazing at him, he began to waver. But his control over the village was already strong. This shouldn't be happening. What was going on? Impossible, absolutely impossible. I think you two just dislike me, and you've all been deceived by him. Anbu, where are the Anbu people? My direct Anbu, why haven't they been arrested yet? A ninja dressed in Anbu attire stepped out of the crowd and immediately approached Chihayo and Ebizo at the end, half kneeling before them. Advisors, the Anbu have completely surrounded the Kazakage building. Please give the order to capture Raza. The Anbu ninja squinted at Raza, hatred and anger evident in his eyes. Although the ninja was masked, even then, Raza recognized him as his most trusted subordinate. Being betrayed by his most trusted subordinate made Raza feel as if his entire life was a lie. He had dedicated the entire first half of his life, sacrificing nearly everything, just to seize power over the entire village. Yet, in just one day, not only was his power gone, but even his most trusted subordinate betrayed him. It was as if he had never held the position of Kazakage. So, was this all a dream? Am I living in a dream, constantly deceiving myself? Raza thought furiously, his eyes turning red. You traitors. I, Raza, am the shadow of this village. You traitors, die, whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Golden needles sliced through the air with a sharp, piercing whistle as they pierced the ninja villagers at the door. Chihayo and Ebizo reacted instantly, their chakra radiating from their fingers into streams that yanked the bricks from the ground one by one into the air. Bang, bang, bang. The needles pierced the bricks, cracking with a resounding sound. But Chihayo and Ebizo joined forces, sending the bricks soaring one by one in all directions, blocking all the incoming needles. You two old men. With such little skill, dare to punish me? Die? Furiously, Raza gathered another stream of needles, preparing to blast everyone at the door with a single volley. Ebizo remained unfazed, calmly issuing orders. Notify the combatants to capture Raza. Yes, the Anbu ninja vanished. Raza's golden needles, barely daring, froze in place. Mysterious black spells enveloped his entire body. He had never imagined a sealing formation had been set up in the next room. Assholes, you despicable villains, you shameless bastards. You actually used a sealing formation. Chihayo and Ebizo, however, seemed completely unfazed by his curses, their faces expressionless. After sealing his entire body, take him to the cell, Ebizo commanded the female ninja carrying a massive scroll beside him. The female ninja responded immediately. Yes, the female ninja, carrying the scroll, hurried over to Raza and formed a seal. The scroll unfurled, revealing a giant paper roll that wrapped Raza like a dumpling. Let me go, you traitors, ugh. Despite being wrapped like a dumpling, Raza continued to roar. The female ninja who had cast the seal was becoming increasingly annoyed. She directed the scroll again, wrapping it around Raza's mouth. The arrogant Raza could only whimper as he was finally imprisoned. The cage of his own village, imprisoned by his own people, was truly absurd. But it seemed outrageous. Ebizo couldn't help but admire Hyūga Teru's powerful methods. The thought brought a wave of sadness to his heart. Hyūga Teru was not only powerful, but he also had numerous spies embedded within the Sands village. It seemed they had already gathered a cache of evidence against Raza, ready to bring him down. But considering that, Raza seemed unlucky enough to have been targeted sorely by Hyūga Teru. But then again, something seemed off. With Hyūga Teru's strength, such elaborate methods seemed unnecessary. Wouldn't it be simpler to simply infiltrate the Sands village and kill Raza? Or was he planning to kill someone and destroy his heart? It was a bit strange. How had Raza offended Hyūga Teru? He'd even resort to murder. Logically, it shouldn't be possible. Or was he simply trying to vent his anger on Yakira, leading to all this complexity? That made sense, but the timing didn't seem to add up. If he had to force a connection, then Hyūga Teru's spies were incredibly skilled. In just a few days, they'd gathered all of Raza's past sins and even incited the villagers to rebel against him. While Ebizo was still perplexed, Hyūga Teru took Yakira to where Raza was being held. From the prison, They heard a flurry of curses. They were all directed at Raza. Yekira felt a sense of relief, but also a surge of curiosity. She leaned against Hyūga Teru's chest, looking up at him. How did you do all that? Why are they all cursing at him in prison? Is he really that bad? Hyūga Teru couldn't help but pinch her hips, grinning. Of course he is bad. In my opinion, he bullied you, so he is the worst person in the world. No matter how much I scold him, it is not excessive. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.